John Bishop, who's hosting a show solo today.
Yeah, but we got a packed
here
show.
too.
Well, that's Josh and I do a show, and Josh is here, but he hosts a show. I host a solo show, right? Josh isn't a co-host. Josh is a producer,
Yeah, but it's not solo, technically. We're here.
Anyway, you are.
I'm not getting involved.
Anyway.
I'm solo on the screen. I was solo on the screen. Sorry.
I did offer you that I would be willing to pull double duty today, but you
did, and that was very nice. But I was already on the phone. I didn't get your text until I arrived, and we've got a good show planned.
Rule calling?
Rule is not calling, but we'll be calling Rule.
Okay. We had a bunch of cut-ups of Rule today. I wonder if we'll have the same cut-ups.
Well,
I don't know
unless he did a separate press conference that I'm not aware of that you had.
But it's a 45-minute press conference. I'll be interested to see if you and I were both apt to cut the same things. You know what I'm saying?
I'm guessing there's at least 70% overlap.
Did you cut the one of the Eckler kind of shot?
The little dig at Eckler?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you cut that one. I
certainly did.
Did you cut the Calandria handling pressure one?
I certainly did.
Okay. And did you...
So are you saying that Matt Rule is chopped?
No, I'm not.
Here, I'll give you all of them. Ready?
Yeah.
His quote about Owen Shambliss.
Okay, that's
being
cool.
Comfortable.
That's cool.
Tyke Hayes.
That's it. So I did talk about. I love the line of he told Pat if we were an NFL team.
Right.
That was cool. I like that one.
I cut a bit about the guys in the running back room who are all winners.
I didn't cut that.
You're all winners. It was like that scene in Seinfeld with all the marathoners. You're all winners.
It's like in Miracle. You were born to be hockey players.
I cut up the one about Pritchett.
Oh my God.
Pritchett's going to be a man this year.
You cut up so many.
10. There was 10.
That's insane. Okay.
It's only 10.
I like the nickname Pritch. I think that's I liked it when he called him Pritch. Also, too, Janier and Bonner being called Wood over. I had to remind myself that is his nickname. I forgot they just called him Wood.
I had no idea his nickname was Wood.
When there were friends,
made me aware of this.
When there were friends of mine who were student workers with the team.
Yeah.
And we would talk about the team and all that type of stuff. They would refer to Janier as Wood. And I'd be like, who are you? Just like I would have friends refer to Terrence Knighton as Pot Roast. And I'd be like, who is that? And
well, we know about Pot because Pot Roast was his nickname in the NFL.
I didn't know that until I didn't know who he was.
I mean, as soon as he got hired,
he was in the NFL.
As soon as he got hired, that's all we called him was Pot Roast.
Wasn't it just they were on a flight back from because he played with the Jaguars. He was on like a flight back from Europe and he wanted to eat pot roast on the plane. I think is what it stemmed from. Something like that.
I don't remember.
I might be wrong there. Might be a Matt fact. I have no idea. What are the other ones that you have?
That Dana getting the freedom to call plays because of mobility.
Yeah, that was one I didn't dive into fully.
The toughness answer.
Okay, hold that thought.
Yeah. You mentioned Calandria, the shot he took at Eckler. The one about it's gonna, he's not gonna do the podcast anymore. Nick was right.
I was right.
He doesn't know.
He's not going to do it.
He doesn't know. I still think he will.
It's not going to happen.
And then the quote about Orich playing, he won't get involved in the defense, but he's going to make sure that the best guys play.
That sounds like getting involved in the defense.
It does, which is interesting because
I'm not going to get involved in the defense, but I am going to tell you who needs to be out there.
But that's been the knock on Rule is that he has been overly involved in the defense. And that's what helped chase Tony White, Mr. White, away.
He's over, but he's the head coach. He should be involved in things. I don't know. It's a give and take. It's a balance. It's a balance. It
is a balance. But if it's enough to irritate your coordinators to want to leave, then it's a problem.
Fair enough.
Unless and I'll say this: unless you are a Bill Belichick like.
Sure.
A defensive savant.
Sure.
A guru.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Rule knows nothing about defense, but he is not a defensive guru.
No, well, that's
why you hire a damn coordinator.
That's the one thing where it's like and look, this is such a gross generalization.
Sure.
But I think in coaching, this is more so, I think, in tune with the NFL. I feel like you have three types of coaches. You have the, hey, I'm a player's coach.
Mhm.
Rah, rah, shish, kumbah. I got you guys. I love you guys. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. You're Dan Campbell's. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you have your X's and O aces, right?
Yep.
Who are just so smart when it comes to all of that type of stuff. But you know, their personalities, they're a little bit more nerdy than they are like relatable, like Mike McDaniel. Like that's, you know,
I miss him.
and then you kind of, my third would be the type that's both, where they're rah rah shish kumbah and all the guys love them, but they're also a genius.
Yeah.
Which is Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and all those guys. Rule would definitely, where would you put him there? I don't look at Matt Rule as like the Ben Johnson of defense. He's not like a Mike McDonald
he's
coach
not.
where he's doing all these innovative things. You know, admittingly, he's admitted this. He goes, I hire DCs and I try and let them just do their thing and like have their form, or, you know, have their system. So I'm curious. You didn't pick one I thought you would.
Which one?
Well, if he didn't put the precursor of, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, you could have connected a slight dig at Dylan in one of the things that he said, because he said, I want guys who are just gonna like smile at me and be like, all right, whatever, let's go and score a touchdown, or let's go and play defense or whatever. And at one point he said, I just got to be me, and I don't want to be worrying about, is he going to take it this way, or is he going to take it that way, or is he going to?
I must have skipped over that part, because I'll admit I skimmed. I mean,
yeah,
there were some things
I'll play you the
whole 45 seconds.
I'll play you the clip, because he's talking about how he.
Okay, I want to hear this.
Calandria goes, he's like, he's a yin to my yang, and Anthony's the type.
Yes, I had that.
Anthony's the type of guy where he's just gonna go, he's gonna smile and play. And Ty goes, T-Rob was the same. Ty would just smile and be like, screw this guy, we're gonna go and play defense.
Right.
And he was like, I don't want to be like worrying about, does this guy take it this way or does he take it that way? And then he goes, I'm not talking about anybody in particular.
Which,
and then
it's always funny, because he still does this, and he does it a lot, where he is the type that he knows he is starting to say something that can be taken a different way.
1,000,000%.
And then he finishes whatever that thought is. And of course, the thing about Rule is his mouth gets out in front of his head. Or I'm sorry, his head is out in front of his mouth, where he's like thinking like 3 sentences down the road, and then his mouth is trying desperately to catch up. And he gets into these situations where he knows he's saying something that it could be misconstrued. Yes. Or he might even know he's taking a shot, but he doesn't want people to think he's taking a shot. To your point, that's why he always says the thing about,
I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but I'm bringing up the fact that I didn't like doing this.
Exactly.
Which is, when he says, I don't want to worry about how my guy, I don't want to necessarily have to worry about how this guy's going to take the message. Who do you think he's referring to?
Well,
he's probably referring to his other quarterback, but it is what it is. That's why I found the Eckler dig was so funny to me.
It was, and it was very specific. If you remember the bowl game,
dude, John, he's smiling when he says it.
He's smiling. You see that?
He's grinning.
Smiling.
It is. I thought it was. I give him a lot of credit for it. I thought it was funny.
Well,
I thought it was really funny. What is Eckler going to do about it?
As one who has definitely gone anti-Eckler based on some of his exit comments.
Sure.
I took a little pleasure in that, and I realized that there are some people who, again, it's not that Eckler wasn't a great special teams coach. Obviously, the results speak for themselves. But when you are so arrogant as to think, hey, we're on cruise control with this thing, I can help in other areas. That's absolutely, especially when your special teams lays an egg in the last 2 games. Of the season. A big egg.
I mean, they proved that they were very far away from Iowa in the special teams.
Absolutely,
they were a very long ways away.
Yeah,
because they were okay. So like, Caden Weegen didn't have like a big return or anything like that, but then they were punting the ball like 25 yards so he wouldn't return it, but then it gave them great feel. Like they were cornered so much of that game. Then TJ got hurt, and then it was done. Yeah, it was over after that. But yeah, it was. I found that very funny.
Yeah.
I found that very funny. He knew exactly what he was doing. Now, if Nebraska special teams sucks, and USC is awesome, then who's going to have the last laugh? It's going to be Eckler. It's going to be Eckler, John. It's going to be Eckler.
If the special, well, I mean, we'll have to see how it looks.
If the special teams are, I don't think the special teams necessarily have to be at the same level, right? But if they go back to being 104th and all of those,
here's the thing, though,
analytical stats and everything like that, then what are we doing?
I don't think that's going to happen, though.
I'm a little more nervous about it than maybe you are.
Outside of Kenneth Williams, you have all the same personnel.
But Kenneth Williams was a big deal, but so
was Ja'Cory Barney, who was listed first team all conference by the Athletic,
and who was second team all conference by the Athletic. Kenneth Williams. Kenneth was second team all conference by Dr.
And that's great. And I'm not saying that's not a loss, but you got all your specialists are back except for one kick returner.
I have to see here,
and
I don't have a number to it. Let me get the numbers. Kickoff. The kickoff return was way worse when Kenneth was gone. It was even Ja'Cory was kickoff returning, and he was not a good kickoff. He was not a great kickoff returner.
But I mean, honestly,
I'll go here to team ranks.
I mean, of all the facets of special teams, punting, place kicking, punt return, punt coverage, kick return, kick coverage, I think I would argue that kick return is last on the list.
But it's the one that won them the 2 games. It won them 2 games. It won them the Northwestern game.
It won them the Northwestern
and it won them the Maryland game.
Well,
they got it down to the 5-yard line.
It got them back into the Maryland game.
That was a big play. Without that play,
it was a big play. But then you're assuming that Nebraska still wouldn't have been able to move the ball like they did in the last, quarter of the game.
I
mean, it was important, and I'm not dismissing it. But when you have rules in the rule book where you can fair catch anything and automatically get the ball at the 25-yard line, and a lot of teams do, I mean, it's just the return game has been so de-emphasized in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, especially from an NFL perspective. The NFL,
definitely
the NFL killed it, and then they had to remake the rules in order to bring it back to life.
But when you have all of your specialists back with the exception of one,
I'm going to be honest.
They're going to be. I think they're going to be fine.
I honestly don't know what I would rank the most important special teams.
I mean, in the modern game,
modern
game, it's probably place kicking.
Yeah, probably
because you need to be able to score once you get inside the 40-yard line. And we've seen where Nebraska has failed in that.
Wouldn't it go conference by conference though? Because I could argue to you that punting in the Big Ten is way more important than punting in the SEC. I don't know how much they're thinking about. I mean, come on. When you're playing in Madison, Wisconsin on a 15-degree day and it's snowing, I think you have to think about field position.
And I would probably say that punting is right there. I would say punting is right up there with place kicking.
I don't know. I don't know how I would answer that. I'm trying to look up kick return yards because I want to get I've been meaning to do this. I want to get a number.
You want last year's kick return yards?
No, but I want the last 3 games, and you can do that on Team Rank.
Oh, the last 3 games that Nebraska had in kickoff returns?
Yeah, in kickoff returns.
I can tell you. All
right, last 3 games in comparison to the rest of the country.
I mean, the last
3 games, I'm almost positive were pretty bad.
The last 2 games, Nebraska averaged 15 and 17 yards per kick return.
That's not good.
The season average was 25.1. Almost 25.2.
Who's gonna? This is now pure August conversations, by the way, where I now get down to the nitty gritty of who's returning the kicks. I got a question for you.
Yeah,
Cubs are playing
the Yankees.
They're playing the Kansas City Royals next weekend.
Oh, yes.
Where would you rank the Kauffman Stadium as a game to watch or as a place to watch?
Oh, that's
a baseball game.
Kauffman kind of sucks.
You think Kauffman sucks?
I don't like going to games at Kauffman.
Where would you rank it, John?
Now I have not been to every major league ballpark.
How many have you been to?
Actually, not all that many.
Really?
And I haven't either. But the ones I've been to,
Kauffman, Dodger Stadium, Citi Field, the White Sox,
Colorado,
and that's it.
Have you been to You've only been to 5?
Oh, yeah.
I've been to more than you.
John, you got to get out to Coors.
John.
That's a great ballpark.
Because, I mean, if I want to go to a baseball game, there's one place I want to go.
You're going to Wrigley.
Absolutely.
But you understand from
and when all my travel is done outside of baseball season, so there's no games
That's a good point.
that's readily
That's a good
available
point.
to go to. And
I will
and
tell you,
none
though,
of the rest of my family would want to go to as many baseball games as I would.
From
I'll
a
go to
kid-
Colorado with you.
I'll go to Colorado with you.
You're not my family.
Why not?
What do you mean? We're your zone family.
You're my radio papa.
Yeah, you're like one of my 7 fathers of radio.
You are
of
weird.
Part of the reason I
broadcast.
like baseball so much is actually because of you.
I have
Well, I appreciate that.
I have 6 radio dads. You're like the
The
fifth.
fourth, fifth.
I
Sorry,
would put you
the
5.
fifth.
I played the 5th.
I played the fifth.
5th.
Oh,
Honest-
yeah, I've only been. I think that's it. I'm trying to think.
That's
if I'm
crazy that
missing
I've
one.
been to more baseball stadiums. Than you
I don't-
have, and you love baseball way more than I do. And
But again, if I'm
You have
going to
been
go see a
alive
baseball
longer than I
game,
have.
I want to go to Chicago and I want to go to.
you
Wrigley
understand
Field.
from a convenience perspective, Wrigley Field is one of the least convenient places to watch a baseball game.
It's not about convenience.
half the seats are obstructive view.
Not
all right.
okay. Not half.
A
the
lot of
seats.
them are obstructive. How many poles are up in
Okay,
up behind the 200 section blocking views? There's a lot
It's
of obstructive view
not that
seats.
many. And first of all, you don't buy the tickets for the obstructed view. It's pretty simple.
Why? But sometimes when the tickets get very expensive, it's not very convenient to pay all that money to have a quality seat. Also, too, they're playing at 1:00 and it's in the summer. You don't want to sit in the bleachers on a 1:00 game. You'd be dying out
I've
there.
done it before.
So it sucks.
I've done
So
it
half
before.
the stadium you eliminate. The other half the stadium you can't see through
What?
the
They don't have
poles.
sun and heat in the and by the way, they hardly play any 1:00 games anymore.
The concourse is smelly. It smells like BO, you know. It's away from the rest of the park. People are going to take away my Cubs pass so quickly.
I mean,
in terms of me
yes,
being a
I
fan.
get it.
But somebody who I went to literally 15 to 20 games a year from 2011 to 2019. Like it's a cathedral of baseball. But
It is.
from like a viewing perspective, it does kind of suck when you go, all right, I'm hungry. I'm going to get food. I'm going to miss an entire inning because the lines are packed. It's very long
but it
of a
could be
wait.
like-
and I'm separated from the rest of the park and I can't watch the game. From
well,
the
they have the
concourse.
TVs in there. You can watch. You can
Yeah, but
continue
it
to
doesn't
follow
matter
the game.
because the TVs are 4 seconds behind, and so I can
Or-
hear.
yeah,
go,
but if you're like me, though, if you're like me, you're not going there to go and get food. You want to sit there and watch baseball.
I know you said
get
my
your
ass could go and get food because I'm from there. You go, oh, hey, I'm the tourist. You go and get
I
food.
could, but I would normally. I get all my stuff before the game, and then I go sit down.
Well, I don't think
I
I
watch baseball.
Granted, I haven't been to a lot of ballparks. I'm about to go to a new one tomorrow. But every ballpark I've been to, we're gonna go see the Mariners play the Twins.
Oh, fun.
Every ballpark I've been to, regardless of where you're at, it takes an inning to an inning and a half just to get food.
But I'm just saying you can't see the baseball being played at all at Wrigley. Like you are in a tunnel,
Yeah.
basically separated.
But you
from the
have
rest
all,
of the
but they have the TVs. You can keep.
yeah,
track
but
of
once
it.
again, they're delayed, and
Well,
whenever.
what difference is that? They're
Well,
delayed?
here's why: because you hear everyone go, "Whoa!" and then they go, "Oh," and you're like, "Oh, it's a fly out." Cubs just flew out. Everybody got super excited because the ball went in the air, and nobody there
all
knows
baseball
what.
fans do that.
No.
Yes,
the Wrigley,
yes, they
the
do.
Wrigley roar is bad. It's bad. How many people? Every
It's
time
like
there's a
that
fly
everywhere.
ball,
I
everyone
mean-
goes, "Whoa!"
At the College World Series, every fly ball.
Come on, you got to admit. You can admit it. We can admit it as Cubs fans. We have too many people who freak out on fly balls
Of
and end up
course,
in center.
but I
field.
hear it in every baseball game in every ballpark. It happens all the time. We got too many rookie baseball fans out there. Well, not too many. We can always use more baseball.
it's good to
We
grow the
love
sport,
baseball.
John. Let
I
the
like
sport
it.
grow.
I think I've been to 7. I've been
7 ballparks.
to Colorado, Washington Nationals, Los Angeles Angels, Fenway Park, Miller Field, Wrigley Field, and U.S. Cellular Field.
White Sox Park.
Yes,
See, I've been to.
Angel Stadium is awesome. I very
Is
much
it?
enjoy it.
And that's one of the
I don't
older
understand
ones.
the rocks that they just kind of.
I think they're
out
dope.
there.
I think the rocks are so.
They're
cool.
just like we need something.
they're
rocks,
just
I
out there.
guess.
No
it's
reason.
because they that stadium that used to be where the Rams played before
Oh, I
they
didn't
moved to
know that.
St. Louis,
I did not
and
know
the
that.
whole stadium was enclosed.
That's a fun part. I've been to like
And so when-
4 Angels games.
So
which
when the
is so
Rams
random.
left, they tore out all of those seats out in what is now center and left center field. And
Oh,
I
they
saw
needed something out there. I think it looks great.
I
this
saw
might be a hot take, really
Go
quick.
ahead. Go ahead.
I think that Rate Field is better than Kauffman. I would rather watch a game at Rate than Kauffman.
So Sox Park.
Yes.
I kind of see them almost as the same. In my experiences, I see them as the same. Now every time I've been to Kaufman, I've sat in the lower deck. When I've gone to, I still call it Comiskey. I've sat a little bit everywhere. I've been in the upper deck. I've been in the bleachers. I've been in the lower deck.
I mean, that park is like, it's built like the United Center, which is funny because Jerry Reinsdorf owns both teams, Bulls and the Sox. It's built like the most boring baseball stadium where it's just a circle concourse and there's nothing really unique about it.
Well, it's kind of like the White Sox.
Yeah,
it's
just there's nothing special. It's the most cookie cutter baseball stadium,
which is weird because literally it was built as the new ballpark era. Oriole Park and the others were starting to come online, and the White Sox decided, we'll just make this pretty boring. There
were original plans to make that stadium more like Camden. There was an article released a couple of years ago talking about it when there was like rumors of the Sox like getting sold and moving to Nashville.
Right.
Do you know? Well, I mean, it's funny. Like if they rotated that park about 90 degrees to the left, you would be looking at the skyline and it would be so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And yet instead you're looking at Gary, Indiana, the home of the Chicago Bears.
The home of the Bears.
The Gare Bears.
I got ahead of you on that one.
You did.
I will not let your Bears, Indiana insults hurt me anymore, John Bishop.
It's not my insults. It's factual. It's the truth.
Do you like my Mark Trestman hat? You like my...
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah. Stibbs gave it to me.
Why did Stibbs give you a Bears hat?
Because he bought a Bears hat for his dad, and then guess
his dad said, "Screw it, I want to root for a better team."
He realized that the hat wasn't it was a fitted cap and not like a plastic one, and so it didn't fit his dad's head. So he's just had this hat, that he's never going to wear or use, and he can't sell it. So he gave it to me.
Wow, look at that!
It's so sick. It fits my head perfectly.
That's incredible.
Awesome. And then
it's actually for a Bears hat. It's actually not bad.
Yeah.
I like the B.
It's a good one. Well, that's why it's the Mark Trestman hat. Mark Trestman was always wearing the B. Same thing with Lovie Smith, which is like the B. The B is on none of their jerseys. The B has just been made up. So someone's like, "Oh, cursive B, Bears."
But I think that's been in the franchise for a few years.
No, but I don't think it's been in the franchise as long as I can remember, but it's never been on a jersey.
No.
They haven't put it on a jersey.
No, it's just
it hasn't been on their helmet.
It's just a logo that they use.
How do you feel about the NFL and changing all the helmets and stuff like that? And you can now put different color helmets. And
it's awesome.
Stuff.
It's fantastic.
Like
that's why you can have all of these different uniforms.
What did you think of the throw up gray Buffalo Bill uniforms?
Nickel gray.
They are some of
like
the
helmets.
Buffalo
the helmets
nickel.
are the worst part.
They're some of the most
the helmet is really
jerseys
dumb.
I've ever seen.
I don't mind the color. It's just the helmet doesn't make any sense.
Hey, how did you feel that yesterday was the last Thursday without football until January? Any comment?
No.
You're not fired up for the Hall of Fame game next week?
I do not get fired up.
It's just
for
posturing from people like you. It's like, oh,
what
but
do you
the Hall of
mean,
Fame
people like me?
Nobody
what
actually
does that mean,
cares about
people
the Hall
like
degenerate gamblers.
So people like you
I
and
will
Peterson,
be betting on the Hall of
I
Fame
know
game.
you will.
People like you and
others.
Peterson don't actually care about the Hall of Fame game. You just like to use it as an excuse to show your football cred to other people.
Yeah, it's 1,000,000%. Do people actually like Nickelback, or do they like the fact that people don't like Nickelback?
People like Nickelback now.
I think there's part bit, part reality.
No, I think it's mostly reality.
I think it's a lot of bit.
Nobody ironically likes Nickelback anymore.
I don't think the Hall of Fame
like
games. You're calling the Hall of Fame game a bad gimmick for football fans?
Yes, I'm just calling it a gimmick.
I mean, it is.
I'm gambling.
It is actually a gimmick.
I am gambling on it though, so I don't call that gimmicky.
You do.
If I put money behind it, there ain't no gimmick about it.
Have you considered, and hear me out here, not putting money on it?
Good point.
You could just not do that.
Absolutely not.
It's well within your power to just not put money on this game.
I'm just gonna bet the under. Pretty dope.
Yeah, but what if the total is like 13.5?
It's about the principle. It's not necessarily.
What's the principle?
Yeah, it's about the principle of his betting dollars going down.
Tell me, Matt, what is the principle of betting on the Hall of Fame game?
It's like a breakfast ball when you on the golf course, you know you're going to tee it up after, but you're just going to go and take your first shot.
Yeah.
The Hall of Fame game is the breakfast ball of betting. You know that there are a lot more bets to come after it, and it doesn't really matter if it's a good shot or not. There's a lot of future ahead for you.
Oh, gosh. Well, enjoy it. I hope you have fun with
I hope I have fun, too.
But that's not until, next week.
Well, I got nothing to
So
bet on
far
this
away.
week because no NASCAR is going on.
You can bet on baseball. Pete Rose did it.
Absolutely.
Pete Rose.
I bet Brendan Sorsby has.
Brendan Sorsby's probably bet on a lot of things.
What is that guy doing now? Is he just
Well, hopefully he is still trying to get his life straightened out, and he's staying in shape for eventually.
I hope he's
a
getting
return,
help.
Or
I think
a
he
chance
already
to go to the
got
CFL.
I think he already got invited to the Senior Bowl. I think the Senior Bowl already extended him an invite. Or maybe it was the East West Bowl. One of those college football bowls already invited him.
Yeah.
Which kudos, to them. Nice.
Good luck. Good luck with all
By
that.
the way, I never understood the CFL being like, we're not taking him either. I'm like, okay.
Principal.
Yeah.
An actual principal,
It's
not
an-
just you're
it's
betting on the
another
Hall of Fame
homer.
game.
Who is that guy? That guy's
Spencer
a
Jones.
New York Yankee, Matt.
dude is a massive human being. They
The
have
Cubs never do well against the Yankees.
they have another one of those guys.
Yes, another tall, lanky with long arms and leverage and smack home runs.
It's like the Yankees are becoming the Purdue of lanky power hitters. Purdue's got another 7-footer.
Well, that's pretty much their whole.
Look at that guy fire the hips, John.
Oh, I know. That was textbook.
All right. Enjoy your
sadly.
show today. I can't wait to hear your solo show.
It'll be fun.
We're dueling solo shows today.
We're not dueling. Yours is already done.
I know.
Now mine begins.
I'm gonna go in golf.
Go in golf. Enjoy the somewhat pleasant weather, even
Gonna
without
rain?
the sunshine.
I'm going to it indoor. So
Oh.
Yeah, he's a Gen Zer. He doesn't believe in going outdoors anymore, touching grass.
Mm.
All
from
right.
your words, your mouth to God's ears.
That's right. All right, there's your crossover. We'll get a grum going next on 1620 The Zone.
KOZN. Unsportsmanlike conduct on 1620 The Zone. Husker Athletics, Creighton, and yes, UNO. Don't miss a moment, they'll give you your fix. They're on every day from 2 until 6. Spend your afternoons with John, Josh, and Nick. John, Josh, and Nick. They'll show you what sports talk really is.
Today is the last day of the last month without football until March. Wow. Think about that.
I don't want to.
Unsportsmanlike conduct on 1620 The Zone. Husker Athletics, Creighton, and yes, UNO.
I'm not quite ready for football season yet, John. Not
Well,
quite.
I'm not quite ready either, but I mean, it'll be here in due time.
You sound like Josh right now.
No, I don't.
You're counting down.
I'm not counting down. I'm just saying it's the last day of the last month without football until March. I know many people are very excited about that. For yours truly, I am patient. I can wait. It will get here when it gets here.
I will say, getting all the highlights and stuff ready for 25 teams has been getting me pre-hyped.
See?
There's a team
it
that we're
just-
doing next week. I put the package together already.
Oh, nice.
Very fun. Very
Nice.
fun team.
Well, speaking of that, do you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Sure.
Have the video up. The most annoying sound in the world.
Gopher fans, it is time to row the boat.
Can I speak my truth about something?
Philip John Fleck, ladies and gentlemen.
I kind of like that.
Wait, you like this?
Yeah.
Gopher fans, it is time to row the boat.
And here's why I like it,
Dork.
John. Because when PJ Fleck does stuff like that, you know that his heart is 100% fully into that. He's not doing it because somebody told him to.
He
because
is a dork. Yeah.
he's doing it and his heart is in it. If Matt Rule or Kurt Signetti was told to do something like that, I couldn't believe that. Like, they would do it and it wouldn't be believable. But that, PJ Fleck, he's goofball enough to do something like this and really be fully behind it.
But that's the thing. If it's not in your character, to do it, you just don't do it. So, I mean, yes, when people are forced to do, goofy things, that's in my opinion, it's a sign, sometimes can be a sign of weakness.
Mhm.
It's like, you know what? Just say, no, that's not in my character. I'm not going to do that. But with Philip John Fleck, it's all about it. I mean, he
Gopher fans, it is time to row the boat.
I love it. I love it so much.
just an absolute. I you know what? I wish we need to trade out one of these teams. Let's trade out Washington. No offense, Washington. I'm sorry. No offense, Arnold. But we need Minnesota on the schedule. Let's put Minnesota on Halloween instead of Washington.
Wow, you really want to scare people, huh?
I don't want to scare anybody.
They're going to have flashbacks, nightmares from last year on the haunted day of the
They
year.
need to. They need to, so they can be motivated to go out and kick somebody's butt. People will be a lot more excited by beating Minnesota, a team that they haven't beaten in a while, than they will win over Washington.
I don't know. Would they?
I think they should be. Put it in there. Someone call Petiti. Call Tone. Call Tone right now.
Tone.
Call Tone right now and say, we're making a switch. We're moving out Washington. We're moving in Minnesota so that this dork.
Gopher fans, it is time to row the boat.
When it's 38-3 in the fourth quarter, Nebraska can just throw that up on the big screen and say, who's pounding the drum now?
I like dorky coaches. I'm coming to realize that about
I
myself.
know you do. You had one once.
I miss him so much.
You had one once. All right, let's get to the Grum Down.
Grum down.
Grum Down is crossed up by the graphic. There you go.
I got it.
It's over. Now practice can begin. Media days are done. But before we can truly declare it over, Rule had a lot of things to say. So we're going to have a couple of segments today. We'll split it up by group of what he had to say. In fact, we'll have a little bit here coming up. Also, I have identified 3 barometer guys. These are people on the team who, if they have good seasons, they will be a barometer for how well the year went as a whole.
Oh, vibe guys.
I call them barometer guys. It's all about meteorology, weather. 3 big red barometer guys. We'll talk about that coming up. Here in just a few minutes, it's 25 teams and 25 grums. The program that sucked all the oxygen out of the room this offseason. Texas Tech. The voice of the Red Raiders, Brian Jensen, is going to join us. Kent's Movie Club today. I have the power. Masters of the Universe.
I'm very excited for
I
this.
had flashbacks. I had to think for a little bit because, this was right in my wheelhouse, early 80s. So I watched the cartoon. I had a couple of the figures. But I couldn't remember like all the story and all the different, characters. And it slowly came back to me as the film went on. And then as I read a synopsis, I was like, oh, okay, that's who that was. But we'll talk Masters of the Universe, Kent's Movie Club coming up at 3:45. I don't think Kyle gets it.
Which Kyle? There's a lot of Kyles in the world.
Kyle Whittingham.
That Kyle.
The coach of the Michigan Wolverines. I don't think Kyle gets it. Siggs gets it, and he was shooting from the hip yesterday. We have discovered a new innovative way to tank your season.
Oh.
And a special edition of the Super Friends Roundtable, which I am dubbing the Super Friends Breakfast Nook.
Are we going to have omelets?
Not quite, but because there's only 2 of us, myself and Jack Mitchell, it's like more of a breakfast nook than a round table. It's just that little, booth over in the corner.
The booth.
But we'll do the whole hour. Jack and I will, and we'll recap some of the topics of the week and certainly some of the things that were said yesterday. So that'll be coming up in the final hour today, the happy hour here on Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Josh, of course, will be back next Monday, and then we'll be back at full strength for a little while. Well, that's true. You're gone.
I'm gone until the 11th.
Well, you know what?
When do you do your thing?
On the 12th.
Wow. Incredible.
It is what it is. 402-951-1620. It's the summer. See, I told you, football's not quite here yet. It's still summer. 402-951-1620, Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline. You can hit us up on Twitter at USC1620. It's the Liquid Trucking Zone Twitter feed. And if you would like to email the Grum, John at 1620thezone.com. It is brought to you by Equitable Bank, where we take banking personally and answer the phone on the first ring. So a couple of things here to start off. And as I mentioned, we'll hear from Matt Rule on a few occasions here this afternoon. But wanted to go back to a couple of things he said, and these are off on these side sessions. Yesterday, we played you some of the audio from the main podium, but then they did the side podium, which is where you usually get the best stuff at media days. The stuff at the podium, very generic. Mostly it's, questions asked by national people, a lot of generic answers. But it's a little bit better when you get off to the side. And this is going back to the conversation we had partially during the crossover about how this offseason has been quiet. And Matt Rule has probably not going to do as much of the extracurricular media stuff as he did last year.
I get out of work at 5. I take a donor to the Knicks game. I spend my own money to get the donor there. I get the tickets. We sit with the GM and team president. I'm doing all this in the service of the university, and I'm getting killed on Twitter. Great. But I only say that because people bring it up to me. I'm like, you know what? You can say whatever you want. You can't say I don't work hard. So, and also got back that night. We were at the 6 a.m. workout the next day. So like the athletic department has my media rights now. Like they determine what I do. And so like, we did the podcast last year. We also have one of the best recruiting classes we've ever had. Like, is that related? I don't know. I know a lot of kids, a lot of parents, I walk down the street in Miami and people go like, hey, you're the guy from McAfee, right? Like, and I did that to get our message out there. Like, we probably won't do those things this year. Maybe it'll be more player based. Just another hour of sleep for me. So I don't, but everything we're doing is just trying to figure out how to make our brand as marketable nationally as we can.
So it's interesting. So last year, it was a lot of, if listening to the quote, a lot of what motivated last year was to get the brand out there to help, get people interested across the country in Nebraska football. He cites the recruiting class and how well it's done. And I don't know, could they have still brought in the players they brought in if he wasn't on McAfee, if he wasn't doing the podcast? I would think so. I would like to think that, relationships and, opportunities to play football at Nebraska and whatever money that the kids are getting is the driving force behind that. But I do understand where Rule is coming from in trying to get the product out there. I'm not going to fault Matt Rule. And I hope that even over the course of this offseason of bad vibes, as we have dubbed it, that we haven't been so critical at times of the program that it has crossed over into criticizing the effort. Because as you heard at the very beginning, he was lamenting the fact, you remember when he went to the Knicks playoff game, and there were some folks on Twitter who were like, why is he going to the playoff game? Why is he always doing stuff like this? Why isn't he back in the office working? I will never be one to criticize Matt Rule for the effort and the time that he puts in to the program. I sometimes wonder if he even knows who his family is anymore. I try to figure out how he squeezes everything that he already does. Matt Rule puts a lot of time into the program, and even on missions like going to the Knicks game, he was taking a Nebraska booster. He was probably making some connections out there or doing whatever. When you're in a position like this, especially a public position, like a football coach at a major university, you're always on the clock. Whether you're on vacation or not, you're always on the clock. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know, the image that you're putting out there for people. You're always in sales mode. It's hard to get away, which is why, these guys do get paid as much as they do. It is a difficult job. So I hope that in the course of the offseason, it didn't come across that we were being critical of Matt Rule for doing that, because I know I wasn't, and I'm pretty sure Josh wasn't either. The effort that they have put into this. Now, what is interesting in there is he sold his media rights to the university. We talked about this as a function of the newly renegotiated contract. And it's at least this is how it sounds to me. It sounds as if the university has decided not to be as aggressive or have Rule be out front. Not that Rule can't still have some ownership over these things and have input in these things. But it sounds like this was part of the coordinated effort to say, okay, last year we did it this way. We got our message out there. It may have been received negatively in some areas. We need to pull back. And so they're pulling back. And I just hope in the course of all of this, just like with the whole quiet off season, I hope that this isn't going to be an overcorrection to where we do 180 degrees the opposite of what was done before, because sometimes that can just get you spinning in the opposite direction. But at the end of the day, it's still a spin out. Matt Rule still needs to be somewhat true to himself and towards his vision of how he wants to sell this program and keep Nebraska on the lips of college football and college observers and recruits across the country. But I thought that was an interesting quote he had to say yesterday. And we'll have plenty more with Matt Rule coming up. In fact, here in the next hour, we'll look at the defense and special teams side, and I'll start to identify a couple of the guys that I think this year will be barometer guys that will tell us through their performance how good or bad this season will end up being. But coming up next, we'll talk about a team who's got some very high hopes and is looking to go even further, and that is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. It's part of 25 teams in 25 grums. Brian Jensen, the play-by-play voice of the Red Raiders, will join us next. It's Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Happy Friday, everyone. 1620 The Zone.
is on.
Wickman to the air, and the pass is picked off by Rodriguez. And then he hurdles a Cougar and is still going. And finally brought down inside the 25-yard line.
Dickey keeps going. Outside. Sideline. Touchdown. Texas Tech. Cameron Dickey.
And the defense getting after Bachmeyer, who escapes and throws an interception. Picked off by Rodriguez and J-Rod, as they call him. Trying to make him a Heisman candidate around here. Makes a big play. The first takeaway by this defense today. Second overall for Tech.
It's time for 25 teams in 25 grums.
The Red Raiders, the champions, the Big 12 Conference, their first conference championship in over 70 years, first outright conference championship in over 70 years, and now favorites to do it again and go even further in the college football playoff. Their radio play-by-play voice, Brian Jensen, joins us on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline. Brian, good afternoon. Great to have you on this Friday. We appreciate it.
Oh, sure. Thank you. It's great to be on.
Of all the programs this offseason who have had a lot of noise around them, you expect, obviously, whoever the defending champion is and your biggest names, but I think Texas Tech may have led the pack for a variety of reasons. We all know probably the biggest reason why. The Red Raiders were already going to have a target on them because they are the Big 12 champions, defending champions. But it seems like the target is even bigger because of all the crazy stuff that's taken place off the field and in the conversation around the bigger picture of college football. Do you think that will be a challenge for Joey McGuire as something to, keep his players from being distracted from? Because I got to imagine there's going to be a lot of vitriol directed at the Red Raiders, and it may not even be because of how well they play.
I think at most programs, it might be a problem. It might be a distraction. I think this one, it might actually be something that they hang their hats on. Joey loves it. He absolutely, uses that to his favor as much as possible. Used it last year. I mean, Tech has had a target on its back for many years for many reasons. And this year it's going to be a little different. The reasons are certainly a lot more, there's a lot more national attention around it, but I think the players that had been there before are used to it, and the ones that are now arriving, part of the reason they're arriving is because of it.
When you look at the personnel, obviously with Sorsby no longer eligible, he was supposed to be the one to get the offense off the launching pad. Last year, the offense had certainly some moments, but they were looking for something a little bit more dynamic. So Will Hammond's going to get a shot, and he played well last year when he was called upon for Morton, even in the Arizona State loss. What's a reasonable expectation at quarterback now that you've had to go to plan B?
Well, actually, that's a great question, but it's asked a little bit backwards, because plan A was that Will Hammond was going to be healthy in the offseason and they weren't going to go get a quarterback.
Sure.
Will Hammond is the guy that they expect to be their quarterback. But because of the injury, they realized he's not going to be back as early as we want him to. We're not positive of how he's going to come back to this. We better go get the best we can get and keep riding this thing. So that's what they did. But the reality is they didn't want to have to do that. And had Will Hammond been healthy throughout the offseason, they would not have done that. They'd have gone after one of the better backup quarterbacks that they could get, which is what they had done the year before. So I think the fact that Hammond has come off of his injury and appears to be ahead of schedule, and according to the trainers, he's now been cleared to start practice with the team on their very first practice. There's a lot of encouragement that this might be the Will Hammond that he was, and the development of sitting back and watching everything while he had to in the in the off season, and even those latter games from the sidelines, may actually benefit him in the long run.
Brian Jensen, the voice of the Red Raiders, joining us here. Is Texas Tech is our team in 25 teams in 25 grums. Got a good chunk of the offensive line back. Cameron Dickey returns. Jacoby Williams returns. So you've got your top two really good running backs are back. This running game was good last year for most of the season. is it expected to be even better this year?
Well, it is for the reasons that you just suggested, but also Quentin Joyner is back, and he was supposed to be the starter last year. They brought him over from USC, and all indications as they got into the workouts and got close to the first of the season was that he was going to be the starter. So the fact that they now have two guys that they can absolutely count on, and one that if he's as good as he was when he came over to the university from USC after his injury, you could have a dynamic trio instead of a dynamic duo, and it'll really get to the point of, are there enough footballs to go around?
And you still need some footballs to go around for the wide receivers because a lot of portal shopping in the offseason, several new faces. Coy Eakin is back to play the slot, but talk about the group of wideouts, especially the ones you got in the portal.
Well, it is going to be exciting to see how they deliver the ball around. The one that's not out of the portal is Micah Hudson, Aiken as well, but Micah Hudson is expected to be, wide receiver A. He's a 5-star that had been with the Tech the freshman year, transferred, came back, hasn't really shown what he can do yet because of a lot of the reasons off the field, but they really expect him now to take that step up. And then you've got Jalen Jones, just a guy that's got incredible speed, little guy that they expect to be able to use, in the slot along with Aiken. And right now, one of the guys that's being, targeted as a guy to watch throughout the preseason here. He's one that they expect an awful lot out of. They've also got, Kenny Johnson came over. They've got a couple of other receivers that they expect Dante Lee to step in. And then Terrence Carter, that's another guy that huge expectations coming into this season. The tight end that showed greatness last year, but now he's going to be a main target in this offense. They're adjusting the offense a little bit because of what happened in that, that playoff game against Miami where the Red Raiders weren't able to get into the end zone, get on the scoreboard at all. A lot of things were learned in that game, and I think those things you're going to see a lot of change in the way this offense runs in 2026.
Texas Tech is our team in 25 teams and 25 grums. Brian Jensen, the voice of the Red Raiders, joining us here on Unsportsmanlike Conduct. When you look at the defensive side, when you've got two guys who were, I guess, for lack of a better term, probably the soul of the defense, certainly number 2 overall pick, David Bailey, Jacob Rodriguez, we heard the highlight there from him, always in there, always with his nose around the football. Who needs to be the soul of the defense this year to try to, offset? Those are big losses.
Well, I think the linebacking core, it's really not going to be one guy. Like, last year it was really Rodriguez that stood out from everybody. I mean, David Bailey too. But, when you're an edge rusher for the most part, it's hard to be, the guy that is the guy you turn to and go, okay, you're going to make a difference for us. You're going to be the guy that we're going to count on. That's where Rodriguez stepped up. I think it's going to be the linebacking core again, because you've got Ben Roberts and John Curry coming in. They're coming back. They're guys that are expected to, you'll see greatness from. Ben Roberts had an incredible end of the season last year, including the Big 12 championship game. And then you've got Austin Romaine, who transferred from Kansas State. And he's a guy that was, all Big 12. So you get those three guys right there to form one of the better, if not the best linebacking core in the country. That's where the centerpiece of that defense is going to be. And then they brought in edge rushers again that they expect are going to be, top notch, Adam Trick and Trey White. And then AJ Holmes is the preseason defensive player of the year in the Big 12. He's a defensive tackle, the only guy on the defensive front four that came back because the others were drafted.
And that run defense last year was nails, one of the best, in fact, the best in the country. And you mentioned having to replace some guys up front, but it sounds like the confidence can be there that maybe it won't exactly match the numbers of a year ago, but it can still be a very good run defense.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to be as good as last year,
yeah.
Right? But it's almost hard not to expect it, though. And the reason that you expect it is because they have plugged those holes, and because AJ Holmes is a guy that you lost Lee Hunter in the middle there. But A.J. Holmes is a guy that's going to step into that role and really be the leader on that interior defensive line. You bring in a couple of guys off the portal to help him out, 2 edge rushers that they expect to be in a combination, maybe as good as a David Bailey individually. Well, if you've got all that now as your defensive line starting unit, and you've got an incredible depth in that defensive line, that's where the expectation, kind of keeps rolling, because you may not have the superstars individually, but you've got them all collectively now, and you've got a defensive unit that knows how to play together with the defensive coordinator coming back, and that's exciting in its own right.
Brian Jensen, the voice of Texas Tech. The Red Raiders are our team today. 25 teams and 25 grums. Back seven, and you've already talked about Roberts and Curry, the linebackers, but Bryce Pollock had 5 interceptions last year. The secondary should be pretty solid as well. Is that, when you look at this defense top to bottom, what needs to be better than last year if the Red Raiders are to take that next step?
Well, that's a great question. I think what needs to be better is got to be the offensive line, in the way that they not protect the quarterback as much as just really dominate their opponent. They've got to dominate them in the run game. They've got to dominate them in the passing game. They had moments, but they weren't consistent last year. We've got a lot of returners this year, adding a couple pieces to that offensive line as well. And the expectation is that if the offensive line takes a step up, you have all the other pieces on defense, and you have the pieces in the skill positions on offense. Well, then you have pretty much solidified the one area that probably needed to be solidified at the end of last season.
When you look at how the schedule broke down this year, and obviously with all of these power conferences that have more members than they can possibly fill games, you're going to miss out on a few. And it just so happens that this year don't have to play BYU in the regular season, don't have to play Utah in the regular season. I've seen some folks out there suggest that it's essentially a 3-game season for Texas Tech. Houston in week 3, Arizona State, who got the win last year against the Red Raiders, and TCU in the finale. Certainly you don't overlook anybody in the league, but do you think there are some folks who maybe are overlooking some depth this year in the Big 12?
Yeah, I think they're overlooking Arizona. That's one we also have on the schedule. Yep. That, with Fafita back at quarterback for his, 10th year. He's tough to defend. So I think that's one to keep an eye out for. And then look at this. Every year someone is picked way down in the league, and they come near the top or to the top. Arizona State did it a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Tech did it last year. You've got teams that, they're going to be picked 4th, 5th. Right in the middle of the pack, and something's going to happen. There's going to be a player that's going to be, playing above his face mask, and this guy all of a sudden becomes the greater player than they thought he was, and it can change quickly. And that's I think you see that in every conference, really. If you take a look at it, you got your teams that are typically going to be the stalwarts, they're going to be the blue bloods, and then you got one, Vanderbilt last year. I mean, you got one that's going to just pop out of nowhere. So. I wouldn't sit back and go, hey, you got an easy schedule because you don't have the couple that you mentioned. As soon as you do that, that's when you get beat. And that's when, you start saying, well, what the heck did we just do? We just threw away what we thought was going to be a walk in the park.
Well, and I'm looking at the game on November 14th, go to Stillwater against what should be a very much improved Oklahoma State team, bringing in a new transfer quarterback like Mestamaker. I've heard some positive, vibes coming out of Stillwater. So that's another team that certainly can kind of fit that role that Arizona State was last year for you. Go on the road and all of a sudden, oh crap, you get surprised, in a game that you're probably favored to win.
I think the good news for Tech in the schedule in that one is that it is late in the year.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have a chance to see how have they built into it? What is it that they're doing that, you either didn't expect them to do, or they're doing better than you expected, if that turns out to be the case. I mean, Eric Morris, their head coach, of course, former Red Raider.
Yep.
And knows Tech very, very well. Tech knows him very, very well. And that's one that is circled on the schedule for the reasons that you suggested. And, also the fact that by the time they get to that portion of the season, if they still have healthy players and things have gone, the way they expected to, they're going to be a team that you're going to have to contend with on the road.
Brian,
that's not a place Tech plays very well in the, in history.
Brian, we certainly remember back in the good old days of being back in the Big 12 and the good vibes that were coming out of Lubbock in the mid 2000s with Coach Leach and the great 2007 season. But I'm curious how these last 18 or so months and being in the playoff last year, how are the vibes going into this year around the fan base, around the community? Because I know how much Texas Tech means to that part of the state, and this is a program that has legitimate national championship aspirations.
The bar has definitely been raised, and you can feel it. And that is, it's something that you felt this with the Leach era as he continued to rise. If you look back at his tenure, just about every year he took another step up.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that one time where you knock off number one, you're literally a game away from being a national champion game participant, and fell flat. Well, Tech got over the hump with the Big 12 championship a year ago. So now they're back where Leach had them. They're back where they believe that they can get to the next level. And it's up to Joey McGuire and the people that he's brought in and, everybody around this program to get them over that hump. But the hump now is no longer a Big 12 championship. The hump now is to get over the hurdle of the playoffs and actually win a national championship, which obviously is something they've never done.
Brian Jensen, the voice of Texas Tech. Brian, we appreciate it. Enjoy the final waning days of the off season because the grind begins in 5 weeks.
Can't wait. Thank you.
You bet. Brian Jensen joining us on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline. When you take a look at that Texas Tech schedule, and not really a huge non-conference game. They do go to Oregon State, but that's a game that they should be able to handle. The Houston game, which is one of those three that I mentioned, is week 3. And then the other road games are at Colorado in week 5, at Cincinnati, which is following the Arizona State game, and then at Oklahoma State, at Baylor, before the season finale against TCU on November the 28th. I mean, it's a team that, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago with Big 12 Media Days. It had to be a spite vote. It had to be a spite vote that BYU ended up being the preseason favorite, not Texas Tech. Given what Texas Tech did to BYU twice last year, and the fact that Tech, certainly rebuilt a lot of their roster with a lot of really good transfers. But there's an element around the Big 12 right now. And it's something about this conference. There always has to be a bad guy. There's always got to be the guy in the black hat. And wouldn't you know it, the team that typically wears the black hats are the black hats this year, and that's Texas Tech. I know we've talked a lot about Sorsby and the ridiculousness of that whole circumstance. But in all of that aside, all the nonsense, all the Cody Campbell stuff, all the Sorsby stuff aside, this sport needs somebody to emerge from one of these other conferences, whether it's Big 12 or ACC, preferably both, who can be legitimate contenders. I know Miami made it to the final, so they would certainly count. But the Big 12 needs somebody, and whether it's Texas Tech or BYU, whoever it is, and college football needs somebody, because this whole week, and we're going to talk about this coming up next, about the lamest rivalry in college football right now, and it is sucking all the oxygen out of the room. College football, I don't care. It could be Texas Tech. I don't care who it is, but the Big 12 needs somebody. They actually need somebodies so that this sport's not so off balance with two leagues taking up all of the conversation. We will have more on that. And as we continue, also some Matt Rule audio and Kent's Movie Club coming up in about a half an hour. It's Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Back in just a moment here on 1620 The Zone.
Yeah, except now I've got to do more and try to keep Jimmy on the rails.
Good luck with that, Dan.
We are wrapping up this week our Road to Wrigley contest. So the entries are drying up because time is running out. You can still go 2-night stay in Chicago, 2 tickets to the game in Wrigley Field against Missouri, $150 gift card. Let's see. Oh, round trip air. Go to 1620thezone.com and get yourself registered. Brought to you by Union Bank and Trust, where your money has people. I will let you know that as this contest ends, another one will begin starting next week. And this will be another exciting Husker-related trip.
Whoa.
And I think this one will be as exciting as the one we're giving away.
Are we going to rebrand a 1620 the travel agency?
We might, and we might have to, but be listening starting Monday. New details on another exciting Husker trip that we are going to try to send somebody on this fall.
It's a cool one, too.
It is a very cool one. Very, very cool one. One of the things I know sometimes, especially you youngs, get tired of hearing us olds talk about the good old days. But I truly, truly wish that those of you who were not old enough to experience the glory of the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry, I wish you would have gotten that chance, because you would have really experienced what a great rivalry was all about. A spectacular rivalry, one that pulled on you, that tugged on your emotions, that had the ability to both make your year and ruin your year all in one fell swoop. It was fun to have those kind of stakes. Instead, we have replaced some of these rivalries with what I am now going to describe as the lamest rivalry in sports.
Whoa.
This SEC versus Big Ten stuff has jumped the shark. These last 2 weeks have been some very nauseating weeks with both coaches, not as much the players, but coaches, administrators, commissioners, pundits, all weighing in on this conference and that conference and blah, 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 blah. Here was Bert Bielema earlier this week at Big Ten Media Days.
And I just think about it now, everybody's going to have, opinions, and obviously they're going to draw the Big Ten, SEC, and all that goes around about that. But to sit in the room with both of those guys, I think with Tony and the vision and experience that he has, and to be in the room where Sankey, I know he's got to protect the SEC, and they kind of want to live in 2005 forever. But I think the forward thinking of where we are in college football is an awesome thing. So
blah, blah, blah. A week ago, here was Nick Saban. I got the video here, Nick. Here was Nick Saban, who's not even coaching anymore.
Well, I think first of all, whoever wins a national championship doesn't define who has the best conference. Mm-hmm. I think the best conference gets defined by how many good teams do you have from top to bottom. And I think the SEC has a lot of good teams from top to bottom. So I do think that the Big Ten has had 3 really, really good football teams. I mean, Michigan had a great team, beat us in overtime in the playoffs, 3 years ago. Ohio State, Indiana, they had really, really good teams. We continued last year. We had 5 teams in the playoffs, as an SEC conference, which says that there's, pretty good depth in this league. And a couple other teams, Vanderbilt and Texas, could have got in. So there's a lot of good teams in the SEC. I think every coach is trying to get his team to play at the highest level possible and hopefully get the best results possible. And if that leads to a championship, that's the ultimate goal. But I don't think they feel pressure just because somebody else won a couple championships.
And then yesterday, here was Curt Cignetti.
The Big Ten is the best league in football. And a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
Coach Cignetti, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Drop the mic. Blah, 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 blah. I am so done with this. Yet, this is all we're going to get. That's why I go back to what I was talking about at the end of last segment. We need somebody from the Big 12 to rise up. We need somebody from the ACC to rise up. We need more so that we're not constantly getting barraged by, well, Big 10's better than the SEC. Well, SEC is better than Big 10. I know. We went through it for a couple of decades with the SEC being number one. Now it's the Big 10's turn. It's no less annoying. It's no less annoying. But earlier, Tony Petitti, who I'll give him credit as much as we give him crap, he took the high road. He didn't necessarily come out and take any side swipes. But he did make a comment that has been at the heart, and it goes back to what Nick Saban was talking about a moment ago, and that is about a league is only as good as it is top to bottom. And there's been a lot of conversation about the middle part of the league and how much it challenges the top part of the league. Here's what Tony Petitti had to say trying to defend the Big Ten earlier this week.
You cannot send your top teams out into the CFP unless they've played and have them be successful, which we have been very successful if they're not going through a gauntlet in the regular season. You know, this idea that the middle of our conference isn't hard is just not right. Like, at the end of the day, our teams are ready for the CFP. Our travel looks like the CFP travel. You're going all over the country. How we play, the difficulty in the road in the Big Ten, I just think that's overlooked. The reason why we've been so successful is our teams are prepared. You know, when the best teams in any given season play each other, that's great. That prepares them. But you also get through a lot of really difficult games. You cannot just be ready to go play in the postseason after you think you've played something easy. It just doesn't happen.
So I wanted to do a little research. And obviously we only have 2 years of a 12-team playoff to, do any real serious data. But I wanted to see how the playoff teams from those two respective leagues did against what I'm describing as the mid of their conference. And by mid, I'm taking all the bowl eligible teams who didn't make the playoff. And I think, let me look at the count here. In 2024, the Big Ten had 7 bowl eligible teams that didn't make the playoff. And then last year, there were 9 bowl eligible teams that didn't make the playoff. In the SEC, there were 9 bowl eligible teams that didn't make the playoff. Last year, there were 5. So, I mean, there's somewhat equal number of mid, we'll call them, teams. And as I looked at the results, certainly the Big Ten, the top of the Big Ten was better against its mid than the SEC. Last year, they went 14-0. The playoff teams went 14-0 against all of the other bowl-eligible Big Ten teams. In 2024, they went 9-1. Also, take a look at the margin of victory. Last year, the average margin of victory in those games was almost 19 points a game. In 2024, it was 15 points a game. Whereas in the SEC, in 2025, the SEC, the top of the SEC, went 12-2 against the bowl-eligible mid. And in 2024, they went 8-3. So overall, the Big Ten was 23-1, and the SEC's top teams were 21-5. So certainly an advantage for the Big Ten. And the margin of victory, by the way, in the SEC games was a lot tighter. 6 points per game in 24, 8.5 points per game last year. And then I also included, for those of you watching it on the stream, it's visible to you, but I also included what they did against the spread and the spread differential. And 2 years ago, the spread differential was in the negative. This is, again, the number of points a team either does or doesn't cover by. So how much did you outperform or underperform the actual spread? Last year, both of the top ends of the conferences dominated. The spread differential in the Big Ten games was 88 points total over 14 games, and the SEC's was 54 over 14. The conclusion I've drawn here is that the Big Ten's mid wasn't as competitive against the top of their league as the SEC's mid was to the top of theirs. Now, an argument could be made, well, maybe it was because the Big Ten's top was just that much better. Certainly possible. But if you're looking at competitive nature, it looks like the SEC's mid was a little more feisty against the top half of their schedule or top half of their league than the Big Ten's was. Not a huge advantage, but one nonetheless. I'll be curious to see how it goes this year. When we continue, I'm going to start to identify 3 guys on this year's Nebraska football team who I think will be barometer guys. And we'll do that as we hear a little bit more from what Matt Rule had to say yesterday, especially in regards to special teams and defense. That ahead of Ken's Movie Club next on 1620 The Zone. You can always give us a buzz on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline. And don't forget, we're still giving out those $100 gift cards to Sky Bar and Grill at Prairie Flower Casino. Enter to win at 1620thezone.com. Everything's at 1620thezone.com. Contests.
A lot there.
A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff. Matt Rule yesterday. I want to focus here in this segment, and coming up next hour after Kent, we'll talk a little offense. But I think there are three barometer guys. Now, it may sound like a little tiny bit of a cop-out that two of these guys are coordinators. But I truly believe that Rob Orich and Brett Maher are going to be two barometer guys. Meaning, if we are talking about them in positive terms at the end of the season, that will mean success for Nebraska football. And while that's naturally true, anytime you're talking positively about your coordinators, it usually means that side of the ball is doing really well. But the reason why I particularly focus on these guys, and we'll start here with a quote from Coach Rule yesterday. This will be number 10, Nick, talking about Rob Orich and the reasons why he was brought to Nebraska.
You run your defense. I'm not going to tell you what defense to run. The only thing I'm going to be a stickler about is I want the best players on the field. Like, don't tell me, like, this guy's one of our top 11 guys, but we can't get on the field because of the positions. Like, we have to figure that out. Like, you win with great players. So I watched Rob's defense at San Diego State. Like, to me, he won the job with the way his resume was, the tape, the way his guys played. I love the way they played. He's done it twice. We were still, like in every area, most of the areas, we were still like in the top 5 in the Big Ten and pretty much everything, top 30 in total defense. We were the worst red zone defense, I think, in the country last year. So it's not like, change this, change that. It's like, what areas do we stink at? Like we gave up 79% touchdowns in the red zone last year. So like, hey, let's start there and work backwards. Like,
Orich is good. I mean, that's one of the first things he's going to be asked about is how do we get better in the red zone? Austin and I talked about it earlier this week, how badly Nebraska was in that part. And you heard the percentage, 79% touchdowns in the red zone. They only stopped one red zone drive all year and held it to 0 points. If Orich can obviously fix that, it'll go a long way. But you also have the new scheme that's being brought in, the 4-2-5. I talked about it when it came to things that I'm looking for signs of hope. They need to be a disruptive defense. They need to be a momentum-changing defense. And another big reason why I think Orich is a big barometer guy for this year. While there has not been a lot of criticism of this hire, I certainly, by the end of the season, if the defense doesn't show strides, if they struggle, that there will be those who say, well, they should have went out and got a more experienced coordinator. They should have. Why is Nebraska always getting the up-and-comers? Why aren't they getting more established Power 4 guys? Because Orich has never been a Power 4 coach as a coordinator. I think it's important for this to get off on the right foot so that it reflects back positively on Matt Rule and his decision to go out and find a guy, to identify someone who was an up-and-comer, who he thought could make it in the Power 4. And in that same vein, it's why I also have Brett Maher as a barometer. Because Nebraska and Rule especially needs to turn around the narrative that they take the easy route, that they go the cheap route, that they replace guys like a Mike Eckler with people who have never been a special teams coordinator, and to keep the momentum of special teams going. Here was Rule on special teams, and Brett Maher cut 8.
Brett is such a smart guy, such a detailed guy. When you're a specialist, when you're a kicker, you have your checklist, you have your routine. I think he's done a great job in that. We've carried over the same drills and techniques and schemes that we did last year. And then both he and Nick working together have just carried it forward. Our players are a year into it. They kind of know, hey, this is what we do. And I'm excited now. I think the next step will be, We can't be returning balls 3 yards in the end zone and getting tackled at 15 in big games. There's going to be a time where you have to fair catch a kickoff return. Like, at the end of the day, special teams are all there to help us win, not to be great on special teams, but to help us win. And so Brett's going to have to make key decisions in key times.
There was the little shot he took at Eckler, the returning kicks out of the end zone in big games, because that was the biggest criticism coming out of the Utah game. But Brett Maher's got a big job on his hands. And as we talked about in the crossover, I think with the personnel Nebraska has coming back, yes, they lose Kenneth Williams, but virtually all the other specialists are back. If they can maintain, don't have to get better, don't have to be outstanding, but if they can maintain, I think that is a big step in the right direction for Matt Rule, his judgment, and the decision to bring Brett Maher in and not go out and get an established special teams coach. So those are two barometer guys. I will have a player as a barometer guy coming up next hour. But next, it's movie club time. We're going somewhere in outer space.
John.
Narnia, I believe.
It's not Narnia. It's Eternia.
Eternia.
Get your stuff right, John.
It's like 40 years old. I don't remember this stuff.
I have a lot to say about this. I'm very excited to talk.
The Masters of the Universe. Kent Wolgamott joins us next on 1620 The Zone.
Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Kent's Movie Club. It's Kent's Movie Club. Kent's Movie Club. It's Kent's Movie Club.
And this week's movie takes me back to the summer of 1982 when we would be done playing outside and it was snack time and you'd go inside and turn on the TV at 4 o'clock and you got by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. Masters of the Universe. Kent Wolgamott joining us. Hello, Kent.
Hello.
Yes. This was back during the era where everybody had to have their toy.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars changed everything. And the interesting thing about this is Mattel, who is co-producer of this, it's their product line, Masters of the Universe, had a chance to be the carrier of the Star Wars toy line, but they passed up on it.
They did.
And Kenner ended up getting it. So then all of a sudden Mattel's like, oh crap, we got to have a toy line because these action figures are flying off the shelves. So what did they do? They basically put the Star Wars figures on steroids. They made them giant. And they gave him weird names such as, Beast Man and Skeletor and He-Man.
Trapjaw.
And Trapjaw. I don't remember Trapjaw, though, from the cartoon. That may have been an added character down the road. But anyway, Masters of the Universe. What was this one about?
Masters of the Universe is about Prince Adam. He is, as you guessed it, a prince in this world, planet Eternia. His place when he's a child, he's 10 years old, is raided by Skeletor and his group of bad guys. Skeletor's a bad guy because he's got a skeleton face. He's just bad. So he eventually escapes to Earth. He grows up on Earth for the next 15 years, finds his way back to Eternia, discovers that he is the vessel of this ancient hero of Eternia, and he fights back to reclaim his world from Skeletor and his evil people.
But you forgot about the sword. What about the sword? It's all about the sword.
It's not about the sword, though, John. He was the vessel the whole time.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not how I remember from the cartoons. But and Kent, this is actually because I had forgotten they had done a Masters of the Universe real action movie back in the 80s starring Dolph Lundgren.
And it was awful.
Yeah, this was.
And
stopped watching.
Dolph showed you how well he can act in the. What was he in this for 45 seconds? And you just cringe the whole time.
I mean, I did like the fact that there was the little callback because he does encounter the new He-Man in the gym. I did like the little callback, but yeah, you're right. Dolph Lundgren's acting range is, basically from here to here. It's very narrow, very, very narrow.
So I kind of want to take a second and not, instead of talking about the movie itself, talk about more of the culture of He-Man, like the Masters of the Universe thing. I was born in 1997. That was after He-Man had kind of run its course, right? When I was growing up, it was the early 2000s. I was more into space stuff like Star Wars anyway. And I knew of He-Man, right? Like it was in the culture. I was a child. But I always thought it was lame. It's like, I don't care about barbarian guy. Like, I want space stuff. And then when I got older, I realized that He-Man was space stuff. And I kind of fell in love with the idea of He-Man, but I could never force myself to watch the cartoon. A, it wasn't really on anywhere. But B, I have a weird aversion to the 80s animation style. I don't know what it is. I don't like it. So that was kind of a barrier. But I think the biggest reason that He-Man kind of remained in the culture of people around my age. John, have you ever heard of the video called Fabulous Secret Powers?
I've never heard of the video of Fabulous Secret Powers.
So, Fabulous Secret Powers was a video originally posted and made in 2005 onto the Something Awful forums. It's this guy, Slack Circus, who did it as some kind of college. Listen, stay with me.
Okay.
He did this as like a college project, right? A video editing project.
Sure.
And he essentially took clips of the original He-Man cartoon and kind of re-edited them and dubbed them between him and his roommate and girlfriend at the time. And at the end of that, there's also a rendition of them singing What's Up by Four Non-Blondes, which you also hear in the movie. It's a reference to this. It's a callback to this. And it became one of the earliest viral internet memes. It's that video. I don't know if you've seen the GIF or whatever, but a T-Man going, hey, yeah, like just throwing his head back with
I've
like the
never
rainbow
seen
background.
this. No, I'm not familiar.
It is a very big cultural touchstone of the internet. It's a very early internet kind of one of the first memes, right? And that was around like my age. People like Josh probably would have been finding this all over the internet. So I think that has kept He-Man kind of in the cultural conversation enough for them to then make this movie 20 years after this video.
Okay.
And fill it full of references, not only to this video, but to the original thing. So it's got something. It's weird that it can reference stuff that multiple generations understand. And I don't know many movies based off of a property from 40 years ago that can do that successfully.
Okay, I had no idea about any of this.
Yeah, big rant. I'm sorry. I know it was a lot of background to get to that, but all of that to say is I don't know if He-Man would be where it is now in society if it wasn't for this really dumb YouTube video that has 10 million views.
Okay, all right. Well, Kent, what did we think? I mean, the visuals are certainly interesting, and I thought they handled it well in the sense of the dialogue is campy, but there was a lot of tongue in cheek in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. My take on it is if they'd have pushed that a little harder, it would have been a better film.
Yeah.
You know, they come right up to the edge of making it a comedy, but they don't quite get there. And it would have been better if they'd have, I think, if they'd have
into it harder.
Because our star, however you pronounce his name, Gallatin or something like that.
Nicholas Galzin.
You're the radio guy. Come on.
No, I mean, this isn't Galatzine.
You got me. We've done 2 of his movies in a row, by the way. He was the reporter in The Sheep Detectives.
Oh,
he was. Oh my God! This is wow.
I didn't realize.
I didn't either.
Whoopsie.
But he leaned into that for a while, and then felt to me like they pulled him back, and you've got to be more traditional He-Man,
Yeah.
because he was playing him kind of as this goof, and it was real. And I thought that was, and then it pulled back from that, and I think the other one who went over the top and to good effect was Jared Leto, who is Skeletor.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like Jared Leto doing a Tim Curry impression.
Yeah.
But it was, for those who remember the original cartoon, it was kind of true because even in the cartoon, while Skeletor's the bad guy, as with a lot of these, 22-minute episodes, the bad guy gets beat at the end. And there's always some kind of, stupid thing that happens that allows the bad guy to lose. And then it's the overreaction. The only thing we were missing was when he used to shake his fist at the sky. And, but in some of the dialogue in how frustrated he would get by the idiots that were around him. I thought they captured that pretty well. It reminded me of the cartoon.
Yep. But he took it a little over that. And the woman who was his evil assistant,
Allison Brie, yeah,
I thought she was good in that kind of sense of let's make this really out there, you know? And I wish the rest of it had kind of gone in that direction more.
I loved the campiness of this, and I love as a culture that we are finally starting to make movies based off of cartoons or video games look like cartoons or video games. If this movie would have been made 10, 15 years ago, they would have tried to make it gritty and dark and it would have been muted. But with this movie, they made it colorful and they leaned into the crazy costume designs. And there's a Street Fighter movie coming out in a few months. You look at the trailers, same thing. They're making it colorful. They're making the people look like the characters in the game, as over the top as they look.
Right.
I love that we're finally starting to do that, like just leaning into the camp of it all, leaning into it, because just because it looks weird doesn't mean it can't be a good story.
I was reading the development.
Oh my God, this thing was development hell.
Yes, this thing was in development for basically 20 years. Going back to, the mid 2000s, and it passed through a couple of different studios before Amazon Pictures finally got a hold of it. But because of that, you always wonder, Kent, when a movie goes through this many potential producers, potential directors, casting, all of this stuff, and screenwriters. And, we always go back to your rule, check back at the numbers. The screenplay gets 4 credits.
And you probably got to throw in every director that got their fingers on it too.
Yep.
So at least 5 or 6. Yeah.
So it's kind of surprising that they were able to pull off, and it wasn't a complete train wreck to have these many fingers in the pot over the course of 20 years.
Agree. That's probably true. The other thing that this thing did not break even at the box office. However, this is not a movie that is designed to make people like it was a flop at the box office. No, it wasn't. They put it out for however long Amazon puts out its releases, and it's not very long. And then bang, they move it to streaming within a few weeks. And it's been in the top 3 of Amazon streaming since it came. It was third, whatever it was, the day before yesterday or whenever I watched it. It was number 3, and I get a weekly rundown of their movies from Amazon, what's 1, 2, and 3, and it's been in the top 3 since the day it went on there and hasn't gone below 3.
So what does that mean for something, for the layman? Why is that important, and why is the fact that it was still, $50-60 million short on its box office for making budget? Why is it okay that they can be that short, even though, it's now on streaming?
Because bluntly, $50 million for Amazon is an investment in that streaming service to get people to start to use the streaming service, which, if you notice, carries advertising. This movie happened to have one ad in front of it instead of, sometimes Prime will break a movie into 2 or 3 pieces. This one just had one. Thanks to somebody, you get to see this ad free, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they paid for that. So Amazon's making some side money off of that. Plus, they're getting people to use their Prime, which is what people are paying $150 a year or whatever it is for Prime. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, you put all that together and think about it this way. They know how many people watched it. If you're $50 million short and you get 30 million people to watch it over the course of the time it's on Amazon, some number like that, you're talking $2 a head.
And there you've made up your money and then some. And they left it open. They left it open-ended. I know that I as I was reading the development, it sounded like they wanted a standalone, but they did leave it open-ended for the potential of a sequel.
Yep. Did you watch through all the credits?
Yes, and that's the thing.
Yes.
If you're going to watch it, make sure you watch through the credits.
They did a Marvel from 10 years ago.
Yes, they did.
Yes. Do we bring that up? Shut up at the
We
end.
don't
Does
have
that
to.
matter?
We don't necessarily have to bring it up.
There are post-credit scenes, and it does allude to a sequel, which I'd be fine with. This movie, visually, like, I know it was mostly CG. How the hell else are you going to do it? I think the CG looked good. I think we're finally at a place in the year 2026 where, and I'm sure that the goalposts get moved every time whenever you see something CG come out, but I think it looked solid. I didn't look at it and it wasn't like, yeah, it was CG, but I wasn't thrown off by how CG it was. I was just like, yeah, no, that looks pretty solid to me. It reminded me very much of those vans from the 80s where they'd have these cool ass paintings on the sides of like wizards and dragons and stuff. They did a very good job visually nailing that feeling into this entire movie. And I love that. It's metal as hell.
Well, the other thing that they did, and as I was watching it, it was like, this kind of feels like Flash Gordon. You know, the 1980 movie Flash Gordon, which wasn't a great movie, but for those of us who grew up in the time, it was a fun movie. And I realized, man, this sounds like Flash Gordon. And then I realized that the composer worked with the guitarist from Queen, Brian May.
Yep.
And if you remember Flash Gordon, it was composed by Queen, Flash, which is one of my favorite, off-brand Queen songs. But it kind of took me back to watching Flash Gordon, just and how it looked and how it sounded. And I really liked the music in this too.
The music was really well done. And then that scene where at the beginning of the movie, they reference Highlander. And then during the jailbreak scene, they have that Highlander Queen song Needle Drop also. So good. The music in this is awesome.
So, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Kent.
I have two points here. Brian May is an astrophysicist, so somehow it kind of fits.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we haven't mentioned, this thing's 2 hours and 20 minutes long. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was, if I had a big criticism of it, they could have cut a lot out of this, and it still would have popped.
The first part of the movie was about 15 minutes before he grew up, and it seemed like that didn't need to be as long as it was. But overall, I didn't hate this. Like, the length didn't bother me. I didn't find myself being like, oh my God, this is taking forever.
Yeah, but you're right. The early story didn't need to be
The early story didn't need to be there at all.
Really?
You could have acknowledged that through dialogue, right? You could have started him in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And I got dropped in here, and he explains it to the girl that when he's explaining what he did to the girl that gets up and walks off early in the movie, you could have expanded that by a minute and taken that old 30 minutes before that out of there.
Yep.
I do appreciate that the movie didn't try to lean into some kind of trope of he's trying to keep everything a secret. I very much like that he was trying to tell everybody about where he came from, and everybody just wrote him off as being crazy.
Right.
I love all the nicknames for the people. I love how they handled that of it's just what he called them because he was a kid.
That was a neat twist, because we've only known, the characters Beast Man and, He-Man and Man of War, but But he was, that was a good twist, that all of the goofy names to the characters he gave as he was remembering his childhood and trying to tell the story to his earthling friends.
I think that was a really good way to handle that too.
And I do think you said earlier, the one guy, something Jaw, what his name was?
Lockjaw.
Was it Lockjaw?
Trapjaw, yeah.
Remember that being in the cartoon or in the first movie?
I don't remember that character at all.
Okay.
I don't remember that character at all. I don't know if that was something that was added to the universe after I was watching. Okay.
I'm finding he's there.
Okay. I don't remember him. I just kind of remember the main dudes, if you will, like Ram Man and Man at Arms and
Fisto.
Fisto.
Because
That was the other thing. They did. There was some interesting entendre in there. That was that I thought was pretty good. You know, a little wink and a nudge.
When the movie started, Paige had started watching it with me. Then she went to bed because she didn't care. She's like, "Is this a kids movie?" And then I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what kind of movie this is." But then the farther I got into it, I'm like, probably not. Probably not a kids movie.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Masters of the Universe streaming now on Amazon Prime.
I very much liked this movie a lot.
I liked it. I liked it. And part of it was the, reliving my youth, but I liked how they treated it. I loved the music. It looked like a good, it is long, but still pretty good.
It's everything that I imagined I wanted He-Man to be, like I said, I didn't grow up with the cartoon or anything. I don't have any childhood memory or connection with He-Man, but if I imagine He-Man, I'm glad, this was awesome. This was just awesome. It was very metal.
All right. So next week, I believe Josh has the pick, but I haven't heard from him.
I have heard from him. We're going to go to Netflix and watch something called Blackberry. Oh, okay, Ken.
Okay.
I have no reaction. I don't know.
I have no reaction either. I have no idea what it is.
Blackberry.
I've never heard of it, personally.
Blackberry movie. Let's do a quick search. It is... let's see. It's about the BlackBerry.
Oh, okay.
You mean the Crackberry?
The phone.
The phone.
President Blackberries.
Yeah, Crackberry. In fact, that was my first smartphone. Was a Crackberry.
All right, I guess we're watching a movie about a phone. Well, I'm not. Have fun with that, guys.
We will. It's on Netflix. BlackBerry. All right. Well. Kent, we're 5 weeks away from football.
Yes, we have just entered the worst month of the sports year. No real football and no F1.
That's true. They're on summer break now,
not
John.
Summer break.
We have a couple weeks
of no racing.
What are we supposed to do?
Man, there
follow
really
Max on his vacation.
There really isn't. I mean, NASCAR's off this week too.
This is the worst 4 weeks of the calendar year for sports, in my view.
And there's baseball, at least.
Yeah, mid-season baseball. Woohoo!
Beggars can't be choosers, Kent.
Well, I guess can't go out and touch some grass.
Oh, yeah, I've already done that today. Touch some weeds since it's only like 80 degrees out. Some weeds that needed pulling got pulled.
Amen.
Nice.
That sounds like a good plan. Well, we'll see you next week, Kent. Thanks.
See you next week.
That's Kent Waldemont, and next week's movie is Blackberry. It is streaming on Netflix. All right, when we come back, we'll get to some more of Matt Rule, including what he had on offense and the third of the three guys that I think will be a good barometer guy this year for the Big Red. We'll also hear about what Rule had to say regarding the addition of Tyke Hayes to the running back room. That and a special hour-long edition of the Super Friends Roundtable with Jack Mitchell. That is also to come in the happy hour today here on 1620 The Zone. As we are 5 weeks out from football, we're only 3 weeks out from 1620, the golf tournament at Miracle Hills on Friday, August the 21st. We are taking your reservations right now. Register your 4-person teams, and you're going to get a lot for your money, including the golf, 18 holes, a chance at a hole-in-one, $10,000. Yeah, $10,000 presented by Langfeld Overhead Door. Also, we're going to feed you not only both at the golf course, food and drink are included, but also at the after party at the Phoenix, where the Grum is going to be from 2 to 6. And there will be food and drink there as well. So it's all included. Plus, there'll be some prizes and more. So get your team registered now. Spaces are limited for 1620, the golf tournament. Go to 1620thezone.com. Get yourself registered and come join us for a great day of golf on August the 21st at Miracle Hills.
Nice.
So now we flip sides and go to the offensive side for Matt Rule. And obviously one of the big questions over the last couple of weeks was the addition of Tyke Hayes, the former Penn State running back who would have been a Reaver over at Iowa Western, went through spring ball with them. And then Nebraska came knocking after the Mekhi Nelson news broke. And here was a little bit more from Matt Rule talking about why they pursued Tyke Hayes.
I tell our personnel staff, just continue to evaluate guys as they come up, right? And so as Tyke's name came to us, and we didn't know a ton about him, and then certainly not knowing what was going to happen with Mekhi, it made sense to at least, look at another player at that position. And, as we talked to some of his college coaches that had gone on to other places, they had good things to say about him. And, I said to Pat, if we were in the NFL right now, what would we do? We'd bring in a player. And so brought Tyke in, and it'll be interesting to see, I haven't even had a chance really to do anything with him, but just interested to see how he fits in.
I feel pretty confident in my prediction that this is going to be a developmental piece because, there was some thought, when he first came in, hey, he could see some early playing time. Doesn't sound by the general conversation that he's going to be. Keep in mind, he hasn't even practiced with these guys. I know he went through a spring ball, but he went through it with an entirely different team. And while Nebraska's running back room isn't as stocked as maybe you would have liked it, it's hard for me to think that Tyke Hayes is going to see a lot of playing time this year. Remember, he's got 4 years left with the new 5 for 5. So you've got time with him. And I would think he probably understands that, but we'll see. Speaking of the running back room, here was Matt Rule talking about that room yesterday.
No, I think my outlook on running back is probably different because I've been asked a lot about running backs. They're probably different than a lot of people. I think we have winning players. I think Mekhi is a winning player. I think Mosie's a winning player. I think Ives did a great job of the bowl game on short yards. He's a winning player. I think Jamal Rule proved to us in the spring he's a winning player. So I feel about running back just like I felt about running back this time last year because that was a question, a lot of the questions. And I thought Emmett was going to be really good, and I thought Mekhi would be a great backup, and obviously Emmett was great.
This is going to be another examination of Rule's evaluation of talent because they're leaning hard into this. And you always wondered, especially in the offseason, if it was a little bit of pushback towards the critics who were saying, well, why didn't you go out and get a running back in the transfer portal? But they said, no, we don't need one. We've got a good room. E.J. Barthel has said, we love our running back room. This will be another examination into whether or not, Matt Rule made the right choice and believes in the guys that he had, or does it fall flat on its face? I think the offensive line gives this room at least some kind of a chance to succeed. I still have my doubts, but I think the offensive line does give this room a chance to succeed. And if it does, then that'll be another check in the hope and optimism category for the future on Matt Rule. Meanwhile, speaking of the offensive line, this is my third guy on the Husker Barometer list, and Matt Rule talks about him, cut 4.
This year in the portal, we went out and we got some really good players. You know, Brendan Black has been a fantastic addition. Tree has been a fantastic addition. Paul Mubenga has been a fantastic addition, you know, and then you factor in the guys coming back. You know, Pritchett has come so far. Unbelievably proud of Pritch. Like, you know, graduated. You know, a lot of our guys, they have to do their internship to finish out in the spring, and some of the guys don't get it done. It carries over into the summer. And I sat there with Pritch, and we talked about his mom coming to his graduation and how cool that would be. And he got all his hours done out at Sandhills at the baseball fields in the spring. And, you know, from where he was a year ago to where he is now, like he's going to play like a man this year and be a great player.
If we are talking about Elijah Pritchett as one of the biggest assets on this team, I think that will be a barometer as much for this year, but also, again, like the other two guys I identified, Rob Orich and Brett Maher, as proof of concept. And why Pritchett? Why specifically Pritchett on the offensive line? Think back to where we were a year ago. A year ago, it was, oh, Nebraska's got this former four-star from Alabama. He's going to be fantastic. You know, Nebraska got a member of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And then things did not start well. The illegal procedure that took Nebraska off the goal line against Cincinnati, it cost them a touchdown. The game against Michigan, where you basically had a swinging gate at tackle. And then even later into the season, getting kicked out of the Minnesota game. There were a lot of strikes against Elijah Pritchett in the front half of the season. But even as the second half of the season didn't go as well record-wise, one person whose stock continued to move up from a pretty low spot, given where he was at one point in the season, it was Elijah Pritchett. And here's another example of proof of concept. If Elijah Pritchett can continue to build the momentum, it can help reverse the narrative that Nebraska can't make diamonds out of coal. When you think back to when we used to do hits, misses, and guys, one of the biggest problems that Nebraska had under several coaching regimes was taking four-star players and not being able to do anything with them. Now, those were high school guys. This is a college transfer. But the concept, the idea remains the same. This is a former four-star, a guy who played at Alabama but wasn't good enough to stay, comes to Nebraska, still with the four-star hype, has the crimson stamp of approval of Alabama next to his name. And then it's a flop in the front half, or at least the first couple of games of the season, but slowly it got better. If that continues to tick in the right direction, and we're talking about Elijah Pritchett in glowing terms at the end of this season, I think that is another good barometer, not only for this season, but also for the long-term future, because it will show proof of concept that Nebraska and this coaching staff can make diamonds out of coal. And I think, and obviously it would behoove very well for the offensive line, which has some pretty decent expectations behind it, given all the experience. And he is one of the Nebraska experience guys. He and Evans, the only two guys with Nebraska experience among that projected starting five. So to recap, my three barometer guys, Rob Orich, Brett Maher, Elijah Pritchett. And then one more here, and this is going to Dana Holgerson. And Matt Rule was asked yesterday about the addition of having Anthony Calandria and a mobile quarterback and what that could mean for the play caller. Number 5.
I thought Dana did a really admirable job of like adjusting his play calling to what we did well and trying to find a way to win games without a lot of ego. I think he's got like an itch, though, to be able to call the game the way he wants to. And for him to do that, you have to be able to win up front. You have to be able to run the football and protect the quarterback. I think Anthony and TJ's athletic ability and Danny's athletic ability to get outside the pocket and create will allow him to call the game without a conscience and just go attack.
So there you go. There's a little bit more from Matt Rule yesterday. Next week, of course, practice will get underway. And what that means is we will have more player availability. In fact, the players will be made available on Tuesday. And then the next time we hear from Matt Rule will be Saturday after practice has already gotten underway. So the season is almost upon us, practice beginning soon. And we'll look forward to ramping you up, getting you ready for the season. And yes, we just got our Big Red overreaction schedules today. All of them have been set.
Whoa.
All of them have been set.
Did you get out of them? Did you get out of any?
No, I
Mr.
did not
Pregame?
I did not get out of all of them. I got out of some of them, but I didn't get out of all of them. But yes, 1620 the pregame will be back. Both home and road games.
Whoa.
Yes, will be 1620 the pregaming for all 12 regular season games.
And the home game pregame show will once again always start on time.
Always start on time from the Blur Party's tailgate.
It will always start on time.
Always
all the
start
time.
on time. He's making the promise. Coming up next, how to tank your season in the most unusual way possible, an update on Tony Romo's saga, and I don't think Kyle Whittingham gets it. That and Jack Mitchell will join us for a full hour in the Super Friends Roundtable coming up on 1620 The Zone. We have not touched on it here on this show, but I know the guys in the morning were messing with it, and so too was Matt. Tony Romo, who was arrested last week, operating a vehicle under the influence. And then the police video came out, the body cams, and didn't really look right. CBS today announced that he is on leave until further notice, and went so far as to already announce that J.J. Watt will be moved from the studio show, the NFL Today, to join the A crew on CBS with Jim Nantz. There's a part of me that wants to think, based on his very large contract, that Romo will be back, but the fact that J.J. Watt, who is, I think a lot of the people at CBS are trying to groom him to be the next guy, that he is already getting this shot. If this lasts into the regular season, I mean, we still have, well, it's 5 weeks to college football, it's 6 weeks to the NFL. If this is still dragging on, if Romo actually misses regular season games, this might be worth watching to see if Romo eventually gets kicked down into the second team or the third team, or just kicked out altogether. And I don't know what the full details of his contract are, but Tony Romo's not going to be around, which I know to some people is very disappointing. I'm sure Stibbs is very brokenhearted about this, that Romo won't be around for a while. Harrison Bader of the San Francisco Giants is lost for the season. He hadn't appeared in a game since May 29th. He had a left foot issue. And he had been frustrated that, some of the advice he'd been getting hadn't been good, that the setbacks continued to happen. Well, then there was the final setback. Because Harrison Bader rode his scooter into the back of a fire truck.
That's not where you ride your scooter, John.
And then, after the collision, the fire truck, while backing up, ran over the same injured foot, causing major injury.
So
he got hit. He hit the fire truck. Then the fire truck hit him.
How do you miss a fire truck? Of all the things that you could run into while driving a scooter, I feel like fire truck is low on my list.
Well,
it's very big and red.
How do you miss a fire truck? According to KPIX in San Francisco, multiple witnesses said that Bader was seen drinking at bars across the city preceding the incident. The Giants have not put out any further details, but it is confirmed that he is out for the season because he rode his scooter into the back of a fire truck, and then the fire truck backed over his foot.
Yikes.
Oops. Yesterday, a lot of attention was given here locally, obviously, to Nebraska and Matt Rule. Nationally, it was really mostly towards Curt Cignetti in Indiana, but it was also Kyle Whittingham Day, the newcomer head coach in the Big Ten Conference. And certainly in a lot of ways, maybe one of the most intriguing stories around, because here was a guy that we thought was destined for retirement. And then we found out that he wasn't quite ready to go, that he felt forced out by Utah. And then magically, he appears at Michigan after Michigan goes through everything they went through. Michigan fell into this coaching situation. I mean, you couldn't have gotten any luckier, because at the point that their job was open, there was a lot of question as to who they were going to get. And then Whittingham just happens to be there and says, I'm not done yet. I got life in me. I got time. I got time on this clock. I got sand in the hourglass. And Michigan, in my opinion, kind of got lucky that there was a guy like this available. Well, yesterday, speaking at Big Ten Media Days, he was asked about the Ohio State rivalry. because when you're at Michigan, you're asked a lot about Ohio State. And here's what he had to say. Quote, I've learned how intense that rivalry is and how important that game is. Hate is a strong word, but I want to win that game as badly as any in Ann Arbor. Then he went on to talk about how much he appreciated Ohio State, how he, grew up admiring Ohio State. Then he was asked whether he planned to lean into the animosity that existed between Ryan Day and former coaches Jim Harbaugh and Sharon Moore. Whittingham said the thought had never crossed his mind. Instead, he wants to approach the rivalry his own way. Quote, I just think a rivalry can be intense and emotional without the hatred factor. I don't think there's any place for that personally. I think Ryan Day is a good person. To sit here and say I hate Ryan Day, I'd be making crap up because that's not true.
This very much has the vibe of we just talked about He-Man and Movie Club, where he first goes up to Trap John. He's like, I'm going to start a dialogue with him. I just want to talk to him.
I am surprised that a guy who comes from Utah and was engaged in the Civil War with BYU, which is one of the most...
The Holy War.
Or Holy War, not Civil War. That's the Oregon one. The Holy War. And how much dislike and how much hatred goes on there. And who knows? I'm guessing he probably carried some of the same attitude into that. But I don't think Kyle Whittingham quite gets this.
Well, maybe he just needs some time to cook. He hasn't really been there that long. Maybe it'll take a season for it to really kick in.
Then maybe maybe you just answer the question, say, hey, don't like those guys. We're supposed to beat them. We're going to go beat them. But when you say things like hatred has no place, and remember, we're talking about football hatred here. We're not talking about actual hatred here, okay? Even as much as Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh didn't get along, I don't think it was based in actual hate. There is a difference between real hate and sports hate or rivalry hate, football hate. But one of the reasons why I think Michigan started to finally have success against Ohio State is that they did lean into it harder. They did lean into the rivalry harder. Sure, it's always meant something to them, but it always felt like Ohio State had just a different edge about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we experienced the same thing here locally. I think one of the reasons why Creighton had so much success against Nebraska was because Creighton really embraced the dislike of the rivalry. And I don't think Nebraska matched that intensity all the time. And now I think you're starting to see, probably led more by the fans than anything else, but it certainly passed down into the team. And now things feel like they've turned a corner for Nebraska. And I think that's part of the reason. Certainly you still win games with players. You still win games with great coaching. But when it comes to rivalry games, and there is no rivalry in college sports that is more intense than Michigan and Ohio State, because it also carries with it a huge national cachet. I mean, this is the top-rated college football regular season game all year. People come to watch this game, not because they necessarily have a dog in the hunt, but they know, those guys don't like each other. And so for Kyle Whittingham to kind of pour a little bit of cold water on this isn't a 10 out of 10 on the Doc Sadler, Creighton's only 1 out of, 30 games comment that he made, and that it's last, it ranks behind all the Big 12 games comment. But it's leaning into that territory. When you're asked about how intense and how emotional the rivalry is, and you say, yeah, but we don't hate them, I'm not so sure Kyle Whittingham quite gets it. And I'm guessing that these quotes are going to be thrown back at him if they don't have early success against Ohio State, which may not be fair because Ohio State should be better than Michigan this year. But I don't know.
He left himself open.
I would be a little, if I were a Michigan fan, I would be a little disappointed. Because I guarantee you they hate Ohio State. And they want to take the same tone from their head coach. They want to hear that same message. We hate those guys. We want to crush those guys. We want to ruin their season.
How long until you think that the Nebraska team and coaching staff gets there with Iowa? Because it doesn't feel like they're there. It feels like the rivalry is, like you said about basketball, fan-led. But do you think that'll bleed into the team or the
I think
program?
of it. Yeah, I do. That's a good question.
You surprised it's taken this long?
Well, keep in mind that rivalries don't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be reasons for it. And for the longest time, this was mostly about like Omaha versus Western Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of cross-pollination of Iowans that work over here and vice versa. And so the dislike of Iowa was mainly an Eastern Nebraska thing. And it was hard to get the whole rest of the state. Plus, let's face it, especially in the early days of the Big Ten, there was an element of Nebraskans that kind of looked down on Iowa because, well, they're not as good as we are. Mm-hmm. And, the Oklahoma rivalry was a rivalry based on championships. It was about whoever won that game was going to go to the Orange Bowl. They were going to win the Big Eight. They were going to play for a national title. And so there was kind of an air of arrogance about how a rivalry should be. And a lot of people just don't like to be told, hey, they're our rival. So just the long-term development of Iowa has had to take time. But I think it is starting to bleed in. I mean, we look back at our poll questions, mm-hmm. right? I mean, Iowa crushed everything. Even though
people would rather beat Iowa than Oregon.
People would rather beat Iowa than Oregon. If you gave them one win this year, they would rather take, according to our poll, they would rather take Iowa over Oregon. So I think we have now turned a corner mm-hmm. where more people are starting to recognize, okay, we really don't like those guys. And it's not just because they're the state next door, but look at what they've done. And I do think the basketball, the Sweet 16 game mm-hmm. may have played a pivotal role in this because, yes, there are the people out there that absolutely cannot stand Iowa, but to bring the rest of everybody along, it's like, man, I hate losing to those guys.
Do you think
I think it's getting there.
Do you think the seeds could have been starting to be planted with Caitlin Clark even?
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I think there was just a desire to not see Caitlin Clark play well because she was the biggest star in the country. And, mm-hmm. but yeah, I don't think that has as much to do with it.
Okay.
I mean, obviously everything when it comes to Nebraska, it starts with football first,
right?
But with the success of the other sports, and namely basketball, I think it's starting to turn a corner. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't understand why Kyle Whittingham would not lean into it.
Seems like a silly thing for a coach of a team.
Well, I mean,
with that kind of
it's
rivalry.
going to take time because he's new to the area. He's new to the program. But, man, when you jump into the Michigan job or you jump into the Ohio State job, that's one thing you've got to understand from the very beginning. This game means everything mm-hmm. and always will. All right. Speaking of Iowa, I'm sure we'll have some Iowa talk with Jack. But we're also going to recap some of the other issues that we talked about this week because I'm curious to get Jack's opinion on a lot of the things that have taken place. We're 5 weeks out from the start of the season. And now that training camp is going to be underway next week, we'll get you a nice little primer for the final month. This is the last day of the last month without football until March. Jack Mitchell joins us next. The happy hour coming up with a special hour-long edition of the Super Friends Roundtable. We'll be simulcasting with our friends down in Lincoln at KLIN, so we'll do that next right here on Unsportsmanlike Conduct in 1620 The Zone.
We are just 5 weeks away, 5 weeks from today, before the first Friday Husker tailgate on 1400 KLIN.
Wow.
We are 5 weeks and a day away from the first Nebraska football game against Ohio, 11 a.m. Fox Sports 1 be there. Yes, it feels like we have been, I don't know, it feels like the 4th of July was last week, that the College World Series ended like 2 weeks ago.
No,
everyone complains about how everything moves so slow. Everything moves so slow. It's moving fast. It's moving lightning fast. And now we're almost here. We're almost here, Jack. Aren't you excited?
I disagree with basically, except for the amount of times. I disagree with everything else you said. It's the College World Series feels like 5 years ago. And I mean, the World Cup feels like a month ago. That finished like yesterday. I just, this has been a incredibly slow. Coming off the high of the college basketball and even the college baseball season, it has been a hard letdown for my brand of sports fandom.
Well, that's because you picked the Royals. I mean, that's your biggest problem.
And it's back to a throwback Royals season where not just disappointing, but unbelievably shocking, as they were walked off once again yesterday on a grand slam for the second day in a row. Amazing. I bet I've watched 120 minutes of Royals baseball this year.
Well, I mean, they haven't been much worth watching, but don't worry, never fear. Football is almost here. Thank God we made it through the entire Big Ten and SEC and ACC and Big 12 media days, though no one even remembers what the ACC and the Big 12 said anymore, because it's all been about the sniping back and forth. We'll get to that a little bit later, but this is the Super Friends Breakfast Nook. We really can't call it a roundtable. I mean, Josh isn't here this week, so it's just Jack and I, and we're here for an hour. So it's like two old people sitting over in the corner at McDonald's, eating a big breakfast. I got the hot cakes and sausage. Jack's got the McGriddle, or actually he snuck over to the Burger King across the street and got a couple of sandwiches.
Sandwiches are better.
Yeah, well, we all got that, but we're here for the hour, and there's a lot that happened this week, especially yesterday, obviously. With Nebraska's day at Big Ten Media Days. And, we on 1620 The Zone have kind of labeled this the offseason of bad vibes. It just feels like, every time we try to say something positive, someone comes in with a bucket of ice water and says, but they're going to suck. You hear about Calandry and it's, he's going to be terrible. And it's like, a little bit of hope would be nice. Just a little bit of hope would be nice. And I hope what we can do here over this hour, Jack, is maybe inflate just a little bit of hope into this, because that's what really this last 5-week run up to the season is for everybody. It's about getting excited for the season. And the last thing we need is a bunch of Debbie Downers coming in here and saying, they're going to be awful and they're going to look terrible.
Well, first of all, you made a good co-host exchange if this is the mission.
I did?
Yeah. No, this is custom made. The personnel for this show is a lot better attuned to what your goal seems to be here.
Good. that is my goal. That is my goal, is to make people feel a little bit better. And yesterday was all about, the silence being broken. It's been such a quiet off season. And and for the record, I'm fine with that. There's, yes, there is the chance that you can maybe take it a little too far. Last year I thought it was a little too talky, a little too much, braggadocio, a little bit too much, believing your own press clippings about the year 3 stuff. And I think that really fed into how people really, went negative on the team at the end of the season and through the off season.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can overcorrect and like go into a shell. And while it does feel like that because it is such a stark contrast, I like the approach of just taking a step back. And we should also probably keep in mind, spring football was a lot earlier this year. And so it really elongated the offseason. And You had basketball to distract folks in Husker Nation. You had baseball and softball to distract folks during Husker Nation. So it was, I thought, a smart move and a convenient one, certainly with the timing of the other spring sports that did well. But I think it was a smart move to maybe take a step back a little bit, just kind of put your nose to the grindstone, get to work. Because, there's going to be plenty of time for talking. We had it yesterday. We're going to have it all this month. And then we're going to get into the season, and it's going to be back to the same routine.
Yeah. No, it was, and I don't even remember. I mean, here's what I remember about previous off seasons is that there was a lot of video content to watch. There were like off-season documentary type things that were dropping.
The podcast.
Which I liked. I remember looking forward to those things dropping. And maybe they'll do more of it as that gets closer to the season. But, I talk about the off season being long, and I feel like for a long time, I'm a low information fan / media member because, as you said, number one, there was a big gap between spring football. Number two, I admittedly paid way less attention to spring football and the comments that were made around it and the things the coach and the players had to say, not because I was actively avoiding it, but because it just got
You had other
swallowed
distractions.
up.
You had other things.
Yeah, it got completely swallowed up. We were still in Houston during the spring game. Or I was in Galveston from Houston during the spring game. And I still haven't even seen the spring game except for a few plays here and there. So that's very, very different. I suppose I could watch it, but it doesn't really seem like it's worth it now. So yeah, you've got all of that, and it does. I guess it is really interesting. I wonder if you asked that question of Matt Rule and you said, "Hey, was there a deliberate sort of intention to be a little quieter, or is that just in our heads, or was it just that's what the off seasons normally look like? We're just used to the fire hose that comes with the season." Because my perception that it was different, but I don't know exactly how for sure. Like this time last year, this time 2 years ago, was there a lot of other stuff out there? Like I said, I remember the stuff the university actually put out, or the football program actually put out. Were there other things that were out there that aren't there this year, or is this in my head?
Well, the podcast certainly is one of them. That's probably the biggest thing.
Was that going on last summer? That's when that happened?
Yeah, that started last summer. And so there was a little bit of that to fill the time, but there were a lot more. He did a lot more. He did the Joel Klatt thing. I think
that's right.
Obviously there was McAfee during the season, but he did I think a hit or two in the preseason. There were a few more things. And so, some of this certainly can be a little bit perception, because it's not like we spent all of last July, taking in Husker football content more so than whatever our natural conversation is. But in terms of, just the access to Matt Rule and having not seen him for a while, that's probably the thing that is the biggest change. We had Robin Washut from Husker Online on yesterday. We were talking about Anthony Calandria, and this is just an example, but we hardly know the guy.
No. Yeah.
Because he had his first press availability where he talked about, getting the Husker shirt by accident, or whatever it was, and for Christmas, and then all of a sudden he ends up being a Husker. And then he did the 3-minute interview a couple weeks ago with Sports Nightly, and that's been it. I mean, we really don't know this guy. And here it is, we've gone, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on in regards of, Calandria and Raiola, but just a night and day difference. I mean, Raiola was out and everywhere. It seemed like, everyone was doing Dylan sightings. I don't know how many people in the state actually know what Calandria looks like.
If Calandria was in the self-checkout next to me at Hy-Vee, I would have no idea. He's not even that big.
Yeah.
He'd have to be decked out in Adidas gear, which is usually what you look for if you think you see a player. That's what I always do. I look for the Adidas sandals or red and white shoes and then I'm like, that must be a football player if I don't recognize them. But I would have no idea if it was him. You actually, and you said something there that part of the reason I bet it's felt different this summer is because, we kind of positioned it as Rule being the one who was out there more. And I think there's some truth to that, but part of it was Dylan Raiola. Let's be honest. It was part of it was him, and he had a bit of the megaphone and the other thing you didn't mention too was social media. I don't remember if Matt Rule was out there tweeting and stuff throughout the summer last year. I don't think he is now a whole lot. I haven't seen it, but obviously Raiola, and it didn't seem like, it wasn't even inherently a negative thing for Raiola to do that. That was kind of what he did. That was what his thing was. And you don't have any, you don't really have, I'm not on all the right social media, so maybe it's different on Instagram and TikTok or whatever it is, but I don't even know what player would be doing anything like that this summer, creating content essentially. And I don't think there are a lot of them. And I think that's contributed to the whole thing too. But yeah, you're right. Like I just looked up this morning during my show, I pulled up the roster because I was like, oh yeah, I wonder what these people's numbers are going to be. Like I had to see. So Anthony Calandria is wearing 10. It looks like.
Yes, he is number 10. So we're back to Jamal
Just
Lord.
learned that today. Jamal Lord.
Jamal Lord 2002.
Unless, are they still doing the single digit number things again?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure if they are.
I don't.
I'm good with it being gone. Just,
I don't like
to let captains and be done with it.
Yeah, I don't mind the principle of it. I don't mind them getting. My only opposition to it is strictly from a fan remembering the numbers perspective.
Yeah,
it's already hard enough for me. I guess getting up there in age, but and then I just don't want to see defensive linemen wear single digits anymore. How much cooler would Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker look if they were 98 and 99 instead of 0 and 9?
I don't know. Some people really liked that, and it's become the thing now. It's all over football now.
If you're if you're like a 6'8", midriff Grant Wistrom type wearing shirt, I'll give you a 1 or a 7 looks cool. Or something like that.
But if you're 325 and you're as wide as you are tall,
if anything, they should add a number, add a digit.
They should be like the, Douglas Lancaster Sarpy County license plates, letters in the front and then 3 digits afterwards.
That's slimming. The more characters, the more slimming I think it is.
Well, as far as the radio silence is concerned, it sounds like to a certain degree it's going to kind of continue. Here was Matt Rule yesterday talking about the future of the House Rules podcast.
The athletic department has my media rights now. Like they determine what I do. And so we did the podcast last year. We also have one of the best recruiting classes we've ever had. Like, is that related? I don't know. I know a lot of kids, a lot of parents, I walk down the street in Miami and people go like, hey, you're the guy from McAfee, right? And I did that to get our message out there. We probably won't do those things this year. Maybe it'll be more player-based. It's just another hour of sleep for me, so I don't, but everything we're doing is just trying to figure out how to make our brand as marketable nationally as we can. And because those things matter, right? People are just right now. There are people who do, all these things matter. And I'm just, what right, wrong, or different. I'm always trying to think 3 years out and say what, if I do this now, even if people don't like it, what will that mean in 3 years? And to me, that's what a good steward of a place does.
You're nodding your head. You seem to agree that, maybe this is the right move. But in defending doing all that stuff last year, it was to lay the groundwork. And as he pointed out, look at our recruiting class this year. Maybe it had a piece of that.
I don't know the answer to that. I do. We were talking about this on Twitter last night. I do feel like I put the McAfee appearances in a slightly different bucket than the in-house podcast because the McAfee stuff is really blasted out, blasted out.
Yes.
I don't know what the numbers were on the podcast. Maybe they were great. Better than mine, I'm sure. But in any case, I mean, like, I absolutely don't begrudge anything about that strategy, about being about being nationally relevant. And they have pulled, John. I've been a little amazed about what they've been able to do recruiting, given where everything else is. And I've attributed more of it just to him to Rule as being someone who is really, really good at communicating, really good at sales, really good at casting a vision. Like I still think he is absolutely all of those things. And when he's talking to parents and recruits, to the extent that he is, that's where I kind of assumed a lot of it was, but I don't know, maybe the podcast played into that as well. But in the off season, in the recruiting part of it, I think to the extent people have had concerns or complained, okay, let's cut to the chase here. To the extent people had concerns or complained, it was because if that seemed like a focus in the season, if and when it did, when things weren't going well, I think that was probably the time that elicited complaints from people the most.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if Nebraska is 9-0, no one's complaining about it. In fact, they're saying we want more. But because, especially the end of the season, but if you lose a game and things, as you look back at last season, I mean, that I said this yesterday. The worst loss last year was not given to Nebraska by Iowa or Utah. It was given by Penn State twice. The game itself, but before that, the firing of James Franklin and that 2-week period, which, was the coaching search, the rumors about Rule, the contract extension, and then the disaster at Minnesota. And so it felt like Penn State beat Nebraska twice last year. And the first one, and it was after that moment where it was like folks were throwing their hands going, hey, why are you doing this 10-minute shot with McAfee? Go back in the film room. Or I don't care about your stupid podcast. Go coach somebody, but if you're winning, it's not a big deal. But in terms of, the overall picture of trying to sell something, I have said this before. You can say whatever you want about the faults of Matt Rule as a game manager or, talent evaluator or whatever, the X's and O's, whatever that. I will never fault him for the work that he has put into the program and the attitude that he has carried about the program and the state.
I agree.
He's got all the best intentions at heart. You can argue whether or not the how and why, or the how is off, but you can't argue the why and the intent behind it. And so, I won't fault a guy for trying, especially if he has the best intentions of the program and, dare I say, the greater state at heart.
Yes, agreed with all that, man. When he talked right after he got hired, I remember I was at a basketball game and he had some things said there, and I don't even remember exactly what it was. I was like, man, he said the exact things I wanted to hear at that moment. And all of the direction he's went with all of that, totally agree on all of that. I think where it maybe has felt like there can be a disconnect is when there becomes so much focus on PR. And I don't even just mean getting the word out to the nation, of marketing to recruits and affecting the national brand as much, but it's just when there's such a PR focus that it almost starts to make some of it feel a little less genuine. Fair or not that you would say that, but right when we're in a business, John, like we get we see the PR stuff. I'm in news. I hear I see candidates with talking points, right? Yep. I see all of these things, and there becomes a point where you're just like, okay, this just talk, right? Just you don't need to so, and maybe that's where the tension is, because I'm not totally sure, because I heard him say that yesterday, and I've praised him for that before, and I still do, which is staying relevant. I mean, I don't know. I would never blame him for being on McAfee. I mean, I would sure do that. I don't know how you would say no to that. And to the degree that he probably hasn't in the summer, that probably is more a function of the fact that it's just not germane to. That's probably more on McAfee's side than anything. I mean, again, not in season. It's not a time where people are talking about that. So I've got no. I think there's just a somewhat line where you get so meticulous about the PR of every single thing that where you're taking it beyond that, just extending the brand and painting a picture and being visible nationally, and then it can become such a focus all year long that perhaps there's concern that becomes somewhat distracting.
Take a quick break here. When we come back, I want to follow up on something that Justin Evans said yesterday, the breath of fresh air comment, but it led me into thinking about, we've talked about Anthony Calandria and what he needs to do on the field, but you wonder what the psychological aspects of his addition to the program will mean for this season. And we'll get into some of that as we continue. And if you're not already fired up for football, if that last segment didn't do it, as we go to break, let's let America's greatest motivating coach, Philip John Fleck, get us excited.
Gopher fans, it is time to row the boat.
We'll be back on 1400 KLIN and 1620 The Zone. Welcome back. It's a special extended edition of the Super Friends Roundtable. It's actually the Super Friends Breakfast Nook. It's just Jack and John this week. Of course, we'll be back with you 5 weeks from today, the first Friday Husker tailgate on 1400 KLI. And I'm looking forward to being back in the studio with you and Nate, though I am not looking forward to getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I would. I asked you if you wanted to come back, and I'm always ready for you to say, you know what? I decided I like sleeping. Because you have that option in life and I don't. And so I always am wondering if this is going to be the year. But no, John has said he will come back for the Friday Husker tailgate on KLIN, which back in the day also ran on 1620 The Zone. I mean, you want to go back to the early days. This is like a 17-year program now. It's 18
What
years.
year was it? 08 or 9 that it started?
One of those two. The original lineup, believe it or not, was the two of us, Kevin Kugler and Damon Benning.
Yes.
That was the very original lineup. And then Joe Gans came in and did a year for Damon. Jason Peter has been a host on it. Brendan Stye has been a host on it. Corey Ross has been a host on it. Yeah, I mean, we've got quite a tree from this show of careers that we've made as a result of this.
And who knows, maybe down the road, another ex-quarterback will be a guest host on the Friday Husker tailgate, Anthony Calandria.
Maybe.
After it's all said and done. So yesterday during the Big Ten media days, they had the players, Justin Evans, Andrew Marshall, Luke Lindenmeyer on the set. And there was a question asked early on of Justin Evans about, what it's like to have a new quarterback. And what do you think about your new quarterback, Anthony Calandria? And one of the first things out of his mouth was, man, he's like a breath of fresh air. And I don't think, we can parse a lot of things out, and I'm not going to sit here and demean Dylan Raiola. I know it's very popular to do that when a guy's out the door. But it did get me thinking, Jack. We've talked so much about what Calandria is going to mean to this team from a quarterback position. He's obviously more mobile. He brings the running element in. He's more of a gunslinger. One of the criticisms of Dylan was he held the ball too long. This guy's willing to take chances. This guy's willing to go down the field. He was one of the better quarterbacks in the country in downfield throws of 20 yards or more. But we haven't really mentioned this offseason, at least I haven't, the psychological aspect. With Dylan, it was he was the face of the program. He was out there all the time. And it got to the point where I think there was certainly last season, there was a lot of Dylan fatigue. And we talked about it on our show. I know it was talked about within the fan base, but I wonder how much of that also extended to the locker room. Not that necessarily he was a bad teammate, but there was so much made about how something would go wrong, and it felt like Rule and Holgerson were very hesitant to, throw their quarterback under the bus. And you just wonder if, the grind of the season and going through everything that it was around Dylan, the planets circling around Dylan, was kind of fatiguing for the media, who, as we talked about in the last segment, most people wouldn't know him if he was walking down the street. I wonder if there is to go back to Justin Evans's original quote, breath of fresh air that is going through the program just because now they have a quarterback who not only plays different than the one they had, but it seems like he's definitely carrying himself differently than the previous quarterback did.
I don't know how to say this without it sounding like a critique. So maybe it is. I don't know. And I will probably never know what you asked about what it was like in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
But and maybe it was great. And maybe it was, but I have to wonder, just with the way that Raiola, it felt like he was playing out a script that had been written for him
the
entire time he was here, where he was, playing this this character, keeping up PR appearances, being everywhere. And by the way, and like say this about him too, always was, I have talked about people who ran into him in public, and he was great. My son, who was in college at the same time, he's like, yeah, I ran into him he was at Jazz in June, John. They were at like, and he ran into him and he's like, sad to talk to him. He was awesome. He was like incredibly. Yeah. And so like, that's not what so I don't even think it was a lack of authenticity about who he was, but he felt, and I don't know how much of this was his decision. I'll be fascinated someday to go back and look at it, but it felt like he was being marketed at all times. I think
because he was the 5-star and he was the legacy guy, and
he was being marketed as an individual entity, though.
Yes, which is something you don't see very often around here. Even going back to Heisman campaigns in the past, this was very different. I mean, just from the very beginning, going back to his recruitment, sitting front row and center at basketball games, and
he would sit alone. And when he was at basketball games, where was he sitting? Not with the team, but with the athletic director,
right?
When he was celebrating after the Pinstripe Bowl, he wasn't celebrating with the team. He was by himself giving.
And a lot of people read into that. I tried not to read too much into that at the time, but now we get, with the power of hindsight, you can look back and it's like it did kind of feel a little bit disconnected.
I don't know. It just felt like it was all of these. I never quite knew what was behind that part of it exactly. I'm not sure. I really don't know exactly what was going on, but it felt like whether it was him or his camp or whatever was setting up this kind of this character arc for him, almost, that he was in the middle of, and he was always on script for this whole thing. And that my larger point is just, it's hard not to wonder a little bit how that went over inside the locker room.
Well, and again, it's like what we talked about before. If you're winning, you're fine with it.
Yeah.
But if things aren't going well, and certainly the end of the season wasn't on Dylan because he was hurt, but I think there was an element of just being fatigued, and we don't know what happened on bus trips or on planes or at the hotels or anything like that. And I don't want to speculate, but it just, when you hear a guy like Justin Evans, one of the leaders on your team, talk about it being like a breath of fresh air, it feels like there's just a different energy that is around the offense this year. And it's not just because this guy, Calandria, is mobile and can run and will sling it down the field. I think there is a psychological effect to it as well. And I wonder how that is going to affect this team in those moments where the proverbial what is hitting the fan. And you need a guy to go out and make a play. Certainly Dylan had his moment last year in the Maryland game, but you're going to have moments this year, across this season, where you're going to be looking to number 10 to go out and make a play. Will the guys, will there just be that extra something behind everybody else's effort to rally around their new leader, because he is, as Justin Evans called him, a breath of fresh air?
Yeah, there's no I mean, I don't know what Calandria's future is in football, but you definitely don't get the sense it's just a different deal where he is not creating this brand for himself, and maybe that's, I didn't get any sense. Now I should say this, like, I didn't get any sense. Nobody said anything. There wasn't any really body language that I noticed or anything on the team that they did have a negative feeling of it. But I also just think subtracting the pressure around that, the circus around that, the expectations around that, I think probably you didn't even realize what that feels like until you're in it. And maybe that's a little bit of what Justin Evans was talking about. And he also could be talking, and I don't know if he elaborated more on this, he also could be talking about the fact that as an offensive lineman, you got a guy who's going to avoid a few more sacks.
Exactly.
Like, there's a little bit of pressure coming off of it too, because you watch Calandria's film, and that's what he does. He turns plays where the pass rush gets through into either, I mean, the dude is running, he is throwing on the run so much when you watch his clips. Throwing on the run. So he can play with his hair on fire. And while, yes, there'll be some interceptions when you do that. And he's had some over his career where people have pointed that out. But I also think that there are going to be plays that would not have been, they were dead to rights, that won't be dead to rights anymore. And as an offensive lineman, that probably just gives you a little bit of a breath of fresh air.
All right, we got one final segment to go here on our Super Friends Breakfast Nook. We'll be back, and when we come back, I have the what if question that would be the absolute worst nightmare scenario for Jack if he had to face this Sophie's Choice. We'll explain when we continue and we wrap things up on the Super Friends Roundtable. Jack and John with you, 1400 KLIN and 1620 The Zone. Back here on the Super Friends Roundtable, Jack and John with you, 1400 KLIN and 1620 The Zone.
Also, 99.3 now, John. 99.3
Well, yes,
FM.
99.3.
Please don't
Yeah.
forget. We're on the FM dial now. Are you
I
guys?
know. Yeah. Well, yes. 97.7 The Zone, Hastings, Kearney, Grand Island. Say hello to Central Nebraska,
hello,
everyone.
Central Nebraska.
See?
Say hi to my aunt and uncle.
Exactly. We're everywhere. So earlier this week, I get these weird things go through my head when I'm taking my dogs for a walk, and I came up with a Sophie's Choice question.
Oh, geez.
And this is kind of branching off of the poll question we did last week, where it was, pick one of 4 teams that you would definitely say you want to win, and Iowa won in a landslide. And I thought people were crazy because I thought Oregon would be the better win. So the Sophie's Choice question is this: Satan from the future comes down or comes up and meets you and says, you will be damned to an eternity in hell if you don't answer this question. One of these 3 teams is going to win this year's national championship. You must pick one. Is it Colorado, Iowa, or Texas?
A national championship?
A national championship. One of those 3 teams has to win the national championship. And if you don't answer the question, you are damned for all eternity.
This is actually pretty easy. I think this is pretty easy.
Can I guess what you're going to say?
Yeah, guess.
Texas.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to say.
Because they're the enemy. They're the enemy we miss.
Right. And because I've already at least mentally they could be in the national title mix this year.
That is
could
true.
have the Heisman winner. They've I guess Colorado's been at the top before too, but I've mentally prepared myself for that over the years.
Sure.
And I don't know that I can live in this country if Iowa would win a national championship. I will probably move. I'll probably go overseas. I'll see if I can use
You'll
my
go
family.
live with Rosie O'Donnell in England. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think she's in Ireland, but I think maybe because of my family history, I can get Dutch citizenship. I don't know. Maybe rank can help me out. I will not live in America if anywhere where I can't hear anything about that.
It won't shock you. Yes, Texas was the winner of the poll question. Colorado was a very distant second. And yes, Iowa finished last. So many people are still with you. Iowa is still the absolute most hated thing out there.
But the fan base has really come around on disliking Iowa, haven't they? I mean, I think all the losses have helped, but
the losses have helped. I wonder how much the basketball game.
Yeah, I don't think that hurt. I don't think that hurt.
No. Because we talked about this a long time ago when we were doing the show together, how it was like an Eastern Nebraska thing, because of the proximity, where like folks out in Grand Island or in Scotts Bluff are like, Iowa, whatever. But it feels like it's, now that Iowa has not only more wins, but like some very painful ones in recent history, that it's like, all right, we're done with these people and we've got to beat them.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
So earlier this week, we so often talk about wins and losses, and we're going to look at this season at the end of the year, and we're going to see an 8-win season, and we're going to declare that a success, or it's going to be a 6-win season. It's going to be like, oh crap, more of the same. It's so easy to gauge by wins and losses, but in a year which certainly could finish 6-6, 7-5 because of the schedule, I wanted to ask, what things do you want to see beyond the record that would give you hope that this thing is still trending in a good direction? And then the 4 quick ones that I came up with were, I want to see a running game that you can depend on in crucial moments to get the short yardage, to get the 4-minute drives. I want to see a momentum changing defense. It's how many times did Nebraska have momentum, then lose it and never got it back? The defense getting back momentum, getting back turnovers, getting stops in the red zone, stopping teams from scoring when it looks like it's inevitable. I want to see the special teams still be, I'm not expecting them to be what they were in the glory days, but still be a difference maker. And then the last thing was, I want to be able to watch a game and look on this, and when they flash the camera to the sidelines, I want to see a sideline demeanor that looks like is poised, that you don't have deer in the headlights look, or, Rule kind of frantically moving around, lips moving, and maybe that's just part of his nature. But I want to see a sideline that's in control. I'm curious, are there a couple of things that, beyond the record that if you saw them, you're like, okay, this is still moving in the right direction?
Yeah. The first one I would have said is similar to your first one, is just that there is that there is a viable, running back running game. And what you said about short yardage, I think, is picking up a decent amount of 3rd and 2s, or 4th and 1s, or those sorts of things. I would also add to that, this is sort of the same thing, but if we're a little bit into the season and they have been scoring touchdowns on the vast majority of their trips inside the 10-yard line, that would make me feel a lot better. And by the way, back to, we talked about the Calandria highlights in the last one. One of the things, if you watch his highlight tapes, is, man, does he have a lot of 5 to 10 yard touchdown runs. Calandria does. They loved putting him in the shotgun, especially at UNLV, putting him in the shotgun, and then kind of, whether it's a designed quarterback run or one where he can see a little bit of a seam. He strikes me as really good at he's not necessarily Michael Vick in terms of being a runner, or Lamar Jackson in terms of foot speed, track speed type stuff. But he strikes me as being his biggest talent is kind of reading blocks and being patient. I've noticed, and maybe that pays off inside the 10-yard line. My second one would have been kind of like what you said on defense. I think I was thinking more specifically just pressure, sacks, those sorts of things. But I think that goes in everything that you were saying about defense as well. So I would have those two. If you can have a victory, and this goes probably similar to what you said about the sideline boys, but I was thinking just more specifically pulling out a couple of close wins, winning some. I still think we don't talk about it quite as much as we used to at the end of the Scott Frost era, and then the beginning of the Matt Rule era as well. But just get on the right side of those a few times, build up a little momentum with that. And I don't know how many opportunities, but listen, if you pulled off both Michigan State and Maryland, for instance, and you won them, but they were close, I think I'm especially on the road against Michigan
or
State.
Maybe it's one of those like the tweener games, like the Washington, Illinois, which some people might think is a loss, but if you can, win a close one there, especially like Illinois, for example, because the one win they had, they blew them out by 14 points or whatever, but to pull one out like that,
right? But here's my biggest one that I would have a lot of faith would be that if you've got a bunch of players last year that I think a lot of us had high expectations for, and for whatever reason did not take the step from one year to the next. And I don't blame necessarily the players for this, maybe partially, but in some cases there's scheme that's part of it. Some cases the position coach, other places. But I'm talking about Riley Van Poppel. I'm talking about Ja'Cory Barney. I'm talking about Vincent Shavers. I'm talking about, these are guys came into last year really excited about the step they would take from the year before to this year. And I don't think any of them had the seasons that they wanted to, or even close to what you expected. And it will make last year feel like more of an aberration, because that was the unique thing about last year, I thought, with so many players. Dylan Raiola, Emmett Johnson took that step, but very few others did. Yep, and there was an odd amount that didn't, I thought. So that would be the biggest one.
All right. Well, we still have 5 weeks to go, but the season's getting closer. We'll be back with a full roundtable, of course, next week. Jack, this was fun. We got to fill an entire hour together. And just think, 5 weeks from now, Friday Husker Tailgate, Friday morning.
We'll be doing it, getting ready for Ohio. Oh, man, awkward week for Frank Solich.
All right. For Jack Mitchell, I'm John Bishop. Have a great weekend, everyone.